Is there anyone hiding behind a TV for public participation over there? Okay, great. All right, we'll get going here then. First item is warrant Article 27, Recreation, Land, Water Conservation. We have Brendan Egan with Rec Commission and David Norton. Would you have a follow-up report there?
The subcommittee has no new information, other than Brendan supplied both details of the budget and details of an electrical, an estimate that fit into the overall 2.3 million budget item.
Excellent. And everyone received those budget updates, I assume? Lots of nods, good, okay. Brendan, did you want to add anything new from our last meeting, or?
No.
And I
As you can
appreciate
see
you
by the
coming back.
budget, it's a lot of site work. It's, probably 80% site work there. Reimagining that site and renovating it and creating accessible trails and accessible pathways, a new playground. It's really all site work.
Okay, great. And do we have any update on the grant status?
No, actually, yes. We're not scheduled to find out. Everything we have read said 100 days. I did check with the state Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, and we're not going to hear until the fall. But they are reviewing the applications at the federal government because they did ask for some clarifications on a couple items. So that's a good sign that the federal government is looking at our proposal.
Someone cares, excellent.
Yes. Yep.
All right.
Better than your tax return.
Do we have additional discussion on this topic now that we have some updated information? I'll throw a question to get it started then. I'm just curious, and thanks for sending all the extra data, by the way. So my understanding is the impetus for burying the electric is that's required if we were to get the grant?
Correct. It's required by the federal government, by the National Park Service. If it's going to be an outdoor recreation facility, they really don't want the look of overhead wires and things like that on the property. So yes. Okay.
I'm just curious if there's do we have buried electric in any of our other parks, or?
I believe the electricity that was on site at Wildwood was required to be buried as well. So it goes up the driveway, from what I understand, terminates at the end of the driveway at the irrigation box.
Okay, great, thank you.
Common is too, I believe, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. Do we have additional discussion?
Mr. Chairman, motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, this is for warrant Article 27, Recreation, Land, and Water Conservation, for $2,300,000. And we had a remote person.
Who's the extra?
Now we have a remote chair. All right, so since we don't have anyone remote at the moment, we can do this by a show of hands. Yes, Frank, I'm sorry.
This is bonding, correct?
What we said.
I believe so, yes.
Right.
Not free cash, if that's what you're asking.
Yes.
Right, yes, that's my understanding.
Thank you.
And to follow up with that, Mr. Chairman, if I may, and I think we discussed at the last meeting, because the transfer of property would need that 2/3 vote as well, right? Because
Yes.
that's on the same warrant. Brendan, am I right about that?
Yes, it's all in the warrant article.
So it would be the transfer of property plus the bonding.
Okay, anything further? All right, we'll actually do a roll call vote here. Excuse me? Yep, okay. All right, David?
Yes.
Sonia?
Yes?
Roger?
Yes?
Ed?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Chris Delaney?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Cheyenne? All right, I think you're muted, Cheyenne. Raise your hand if you can hear me, Cheyenne. looking good. All right, one moment.
Preston, come back to him.
Writing a note to him.
While we're waiting, Frank, I accidentally skipped you.
You did.
Yes.
Is that an accident?
This
This time, yes. How would you like to vote?
Yes.
Very good.
Very good.
All right. Cheyenne, can you hear us now? Okay. Give us a thumbs up if you're voting yes or a thumbs down. Okay, very good. Thank you. We have a yes there. All right, that's 10-0-0. The motion passes. All right. Thank you very much for joining us again.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, next we have warrant.
11-0?
Excuse me?
Is it 11-0 now with Cheyenne?
No. I think we only have 10. Did I count wrong?
Okay, maybe I miscounted.
It's 11.
Yeah, it's 11.
Okay, who am I missing then? Hold on. Oh, I missed myself. I vote yes also. Thank you. 11-0-0. All right.
I need to back them up.
All right, hopefully we'll do better as the night goes on. All right, so thank you for correcting me, Steve. All right, next is warrant Article 25, the Marshall Simons Middle School field renovation. And we have Dr. Connie, Superintendent of Schools, Bob Kuna, Director of Operations, and a number of other people that you'll introduce, please. And just before we do that, though, Steve, do we have any updated subcommittee report on this, or?
We do not.
Okay, very good. All right. Yes, Bob, if you could introduce everyone, please.
Great, thanks. I'll start with myself, Bob Kuna, Director of Operations, Dr. Conti, Superintendent of Schools, Sean Hart, Athletic Director. We have Arson and Hip, both from Nezra Engineering. They've helped prepare the documents for us tonight for the field, Marshall Simons.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, could you, I think last time we were left with a number of questions because you weren't able to join us. Did you have something you wanted to present here, it looks like? Or not?
Again, Mr. Chair, we wanted to sort of just go over the context again very briefly. Town meeting supported a overall field study of the school fields. We had lots of parents and youth groups complaining about the conditions of the fields, and they would come and say, okay, the baseball field needs to be renovated, or the lacrosse field needs to be renovated, and I had a difficult time prioritizing what the order of things should be, and knew everything was going to get done all at once. So a comprehensive field study was completed last spring. They identified the baseball field at Francis Wyman as our top priority, so that was a warrant article last May. That project is currently going to be moving forward after the baseball season this year. The second priority was the Marshall Simons fields, and the project you're looking at this evening is sort of a combined town project. It is a sort of a school presentation because it's at the Marshall Simons Middle School. So it involves the overall project has sort of many different components, but it involves a resurfacing of the track and the current synthetic field that exists. This body asked for some of the latest impact testing, and so I think we have some of those results for you. And then taking the fields, the natural grass fields behind it, and making them much more useful, and these gentlemen can give you all the details about how that would look like and what it would look like, and then creating stands and handicap accessibility from the building directly to the field, which doesn't exist currently. And so the entire project, I think, was costed out at around $6.7 million. And I know the Park and Rec Board has endorsed the project, and we're sort of looking at this as a community need. But because it's on a school site, we'll answer any questions and present any details. And the questions from the board last time, which I really couldn't answer, was, can we break this up? What are the different components? So all the experts are here to answer all of your all of your questions. So that's sort of the context of this project. It is, again, a priority in the master field study that we had completed a year ago.
Excellent, thank you.
Want to add anything, gentlemen?
Comfortable, but happy to answer any questions, or if you'd like us to present further as to any of the components, happy to do so.
Okay. I'm pretty confident we'll have some questions. Discussion on this? Yes, Sonia?
Thank you, Dr. Conti, by the way, for bringing this back. And gentlemen, I guess one of our biggest questions was the discussion of the cost of the project, and could it be broken up, as Dr. Conti said. That was one of our biggest questions. We know that you had had some preliminary conversations and that the Rec Commission had endorsed doing it collectively. I know Roger and I, as a subcommittee to Rec, had kind of discussed it a little bit with the Recreation Commission as well, because I think the concern, I'll speak for myself, but the concern for the committee was there a few major projects coming in, is in fact it prudent to wait to put the two master plans together. Recreations is scheduled to be done in May, and then the schools that's done, and put it together, and then come forward with pieces, which triggered the question about, can this be split? Like if the track and the field need to be really done, could you split that and then do is it the lower field? Am I saying that right? That lower field is a second portion in order to alleviate some of the financial strain, given there are some big warrants coming before us, for the police and for the schools. So that was one long question to say, can you split the project, I guess is what.
I think we can talk about options of splitting the project, and again, I'll let them do that. But Ms. Rollins, I would like to have sort of, when you're done asking questions about this, just, I know we need a longer conversation about how we can approach sort of parks and fields in a more
Yes.
predictable way.
Yeah.
So we're not coming to you with sort of, it feels like multiple needs, and we don't want to be in competition with Park and Rec either. So, but I'm saying we only know there's so much money, so I think combining, working together, we've done that with other things, parking lots, sidewalks, technology. I think if we can talk about a strategy, we met, and we would like to have that conversation with
I think
Ways and
that
Means.
would be great, because I think, as you guys have said, it's a collective need, right? It's on, obviously, it's on the schools, Dr. Conti, right, in that it's on the property, but it's certainly a collective need that both departments utilize and the community utilizes. So I think that's great, because I don't think anybody would argue that the project before us is a beautiful project, right? So now it's just about the finances of, could it possibly be split, and what does that look like if you split it?
I'll jump in for a second. So, to answer the question, ultimately, yes, everything could be split up.
Yep.
Is that ideal? Maybe from a financial point of view, yes. From a playability standpoint, probably not, right? So to put the field in and maybe not do the lights and not provide the accessibility routes may just hinder some of it. Also, too, I know it was mentioned, maybe not intentionally, but doing the existing field first. I think we would target doing the lower field first and keeping the existing field in play and maximizing the use of it currently while the other one is under construction. So there's a larger sum attached to the backfield. So again, it really is going to change the impact minimally as far as the ask. I know $2 million is still a lot of money, but the front field, which is brush field, has a lower initial impact cost. But again, I think there's ultimately buying power by scheduling the fields back to back, just because of on-site mobilization costs, having the companies there, scheduling the whole project as a whole. We just
Right.
believe there's more buying power to us. Breaking it up will be impactful as far as the field being in construction longer, but it will ultimately impact the cost as well, too. Just bidding all of them separately or even bidding as two projects will ultimately just cost us more money.
Right. So Brushfield, Bob, if I may, is notwithstanding now, that you're not talking about doing the actual field that they play on. Brush is the one that you want to do as a new.
So Brush is the existing turf field on the project within the track.
Closest to the
gotcha.
parking lot.
Correct.
Is brush.
Okay, got it.
And then the bigger field in the back is the existing grass field that would become the new turf facility.
So when you say you're, if I may, Mr. Chairman,
Go
when
ahead,
you
yeah.
say if you're splitting it, sorry, then which one did I not say correctly that you're hoping to turn it around on? Because I just don't know which one, just so I make sure I'm on the same page with you, is it,
We would recommend keeping the current field that's already turf
okay,
and maximizing the useful life out of that.
Right.
Focusing on the rear field first.
Got it.
And once they're complete, let's say we fund this project.
yes,
Once the turf company is complete, to then move on to
Then
it.
move on.
So we're at year 11 right now, and, you know, the question comes up all the time when we talk about turf fields.
Yes.
The more you play on it, the less time you have on it, right? So there's impact testing that we need to do for hardness and so forth. And there
Yes.
is wear and tear on a turf field. So varsity field at the high school is our number one used field in town. Next was this one, and hopefully, once we put a turf field behind it, we'll have number 1, 2, 3 of our most used fields. I mean, scheduling, they can definitely be used more. They're not as impacted in cold weather, wet weather, and so forth, so the seasons are longer. And since we already have lights at Marshall Simons on the front field, we can actually run practice games, you know, events on the field later into the night, whereas some of the fields that don't have lights don't, you know, we can't do that. The back grass field doesn't have that same luxury, so it has lights, but it doesn't have the same luxury lights that are there, so we don't have the full capacity that we do on the front turf field. So again, part of this package would be looking not only the new turf field, replacing the turf field and the track that's there, accessible ramps to all the facility, accessibility ramps from the back parking lot, so we could take advantage of spreading out parking as well too, and making it accessible from the parking lot and the school down to the field, which would benefit us in many different ways. Adding some seating capacity that we don't have there at that field, and also new lighting as well too, primarily on the back field that's currently grass.
so I'll close by saying to you, the project is fantastic, right? So you don't need to sell me on the project per se, because I really think the project is fantastic. I guess what I'm trying to understand is how it all fits in, which is the only reason I would talk about, you know, could it be split and what does that look like? So I'm only one person and I'll bow down at this point, but I kind of, just so you know, it's not the project that's the issue as much as really like the financing of the project in conjunction with everything else. So I don't know if there's a discussion of splitting it, but I'm going to let everybody else talk first.
Let me just ask a quick clarification question. There's two parts to this quote. There's the 4.7 million and the 1.9 million. Which part is the 4.7 million? Is that the nearest to the parking lot or the furthest one?
The newer one.
The newer one. Okay, that makes
The
sense.
brand new one.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, thank you. All right, Doug, you had a question?
Do we have, so I see it as I mirror Sonia's comments. It's an awesome project. It's beautiful. I see it as a couple of different things. The brush field is an ongoing deferred maintenance. We know when we put it in, we knew we'd have to replace it. So, and we did varsity field based on impact studies and safety. So do we have those? How much time does that field have left? Do we know yet?
I'll answer it. So we just requested that, the newest ones. So we're still in compliance now. I don't know what the newest results will be, but I have a strong feeling we're still in compliance. And so again, I do think that we can maximize the time on that. As far as, you know, even if we were to, let's say, fund this project and then try to schedule something, it's not something that would happen in July. So this is something that we would have to push off just because of lead times anyways. So I think, like I mentioned earlier, maximizing the backfield first would definitely be beneficial to us. I will get back to the answer. We don't have the new ones yet. Once we have them, we'll share them, but we are in compliance now.
And so the backfields, the thing I feel like we start to get in trouble with is that then that's going to be another couple of $1 million or more, because it's a bigger field, every 10 years. I feel like we need to get spread out on kind of a schedule where we spend a set amount of money. We just know. So one, I think we need a long-term schedule for these things, and I agree, it needs to work with the rec department so that we make sure we're kind of addressing all the needs around town and it makes sense. And two, we need a spreadsheet. We need to work it into a capital plan to say, in 10 years, we're going to have to replace this one, and it's going to be about this within an inflation estimator that we can work in. And in 12 years or 14 years, that kind of thing. So in my mind, in order to fund any of this stuff, we just need a better long-term plan so we can work it in, because some of this is going to be I would assume bonded, not free cash necessarily, especially one this size. And so we have to fit that in. And second, then how much of it, like, I guess I love all of it. I'm a little surprised. The only thing I just don't get is off to the right there, the throwing surfaces. Like, this would be a nicer facility than the high school. What track used, I mean, are you gonna bring the varsity, are we gonna have varsity track meets at the middle school instead of the high school, or what's the, like, you're using an entire field that gets used for a lot in the neighborhood. That's my neighborhood. People love that field.
Yep.
And, is that all grass? I assume that's not any turf?
Correct.
Two
Correct.
throwing things?
Yep. And so to answer your question about the track meets, no, we would keep all the track meets still at the high school because the high school is still the preferred facility. When the high school track was built, it was built with 8 lanes, and 8 lanes is preferable to high school and to college level meets. So this Marshall Simons is still only built for 6 lanes, so it would be a great facility. We have a tremendous youth program, track program now that we split the varsity field with, and with Marshall Simons. So again, it would give us 2 opportunities. The problem we have with the high school level track teams now is they can't leave the high school because all the throwing areas exist at the high school. This would just give us the opportunity on nights where we had lacrosse or we had other sports going on, that you could offer the same level of practice in the facilities and could run a youth track meet, could run our middle school cross country and teams here. It would give us the facilities needed to be able to do both at one time.
And if I could just add 2 points. So I do agree that adding a turf field initially up front is expensive. The replacement cost is expensive too, but a lot in the upfront is the infrastructure and the drainage system. There's also a lot of site work that would happen over there to bring that up to the same level. So a couple of feet difference in elevation. But once that's in place, then you get to a reduced cost on the field maintenance because you're really just replacing just the turf and then the infill. I mean, maybe some minor, substrate work, but not the intensive work that you would do the first time you set it up. And also just to comment, you mentioned having a knowledge of what would happen in the future. That is the intention of the 10-year plan that we have. So by doing the field study, we got the next 10 years, which is why we're coming to you all tonight and asking for this request. It also lays out potentially the next 9 years in front of us, right? And what we did is we put the high school back at year 11 as a starting point. Now, all of those could shift, of course. We could definitely change priorities. We could definitely not fund something. And then the high school, same exact thing, could move positions. But that is the intention, obviously, is to have some predictability and also some knowledge of what some of these costs would look like if we were to ask for them.
So I would just say that I struggle with the thought that it's a cost savings. Because it's more, I mean, a football-sized field has been a million to rehab, and you're saying every 10 years, so that's, could have spent $100,000 a year on a football field on maintenance and upkeep. I get that you get more use and wear. I mean, I get you can put more things on it, but now we're looking at having multiple fields. Like, I'm just saying, I don't know that I'm comfortable with just saying easily that it's cheaper. I don't know that it's cheaper. It may be more efficient or more usable.
Could I elaborate on that response? If I misspoke, I'll try to clarify it. I'm not saying that it's cheaper maintenance-wise. I'm saying the replacement cost of a turf field once the infrastructure is in place is cheaper than the initial outlay of building the full infrastructure and the turf, right? So this price is obviously more expensive now because it's complete rebuild and site work, whereas hopefully in 10, 11 years or whatever else, it's just the actual turf and fill.
So, but in my mind, what I see, like brush field, it's $1 million to re-turf it, right? The new one in the back is at least twice that size. So let's say that's $2 million every 10 years. Varsity field is $1 million every 10 years. We're getting pretty close to $1 million a year. We're at $500,000 a year just to keep the turf going. That's,
Yeah.
You spent that money on grass.
Right. And again, we will say that in understanding your point, the amount of time and the amount of youth and the amount of people who use the field is 3 times the amount we would ever get out of a grass field in the exact same location. even now, we're using the grass field tonight, you know, and it's a struggle because it's wet, you know what I mean, and things like that. So again, number of people, I agree, dollars to number of people using, it's all increased. You know, we agree with that. And the part of this project specifically, again, and when you look at it, is we drew it specifically on here so you could see the options that we would have. It's not how it will look in the entirety, but to show what we would get as a community out of this specific piece of land. You know, and obviously the baseball field, the different turf aspects, to show how many fields we would put on it in the seasons in which they are. We're going to put out 3 times the number of people on those fields, youth in the town and things like that. Again, you know, right now, currently, you know, we're practicing till 7:30 at night. You know what I mean? So our 7th and our 6 and 7-year-olds are practicing at 8 o'clock at night because they can't get on those fields. You know what I mean? So again, it was the thought process to going back to the community aspect of it too. We understand there's cost to it, but we're trying to also keep in mind of what we're trying to build here as well.
Sure.
And just to clarify that point, I think, Sean, you told me that this facility would allow you to run games concurrently, because a common complaint I get is not only the condition of the fields, but the younger kids are on there too late. And Brendan mentioned that also with scheduling, it's harder to do that as well. So we felt like if we could have more intense use of this facility, then we could be done by whatever time, and then youth would have more access to the fields earlier. So again, higher levels of use more frequently.
Mike?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So you're saying, I think what I've gathered is, based on the amount of use that we think we're going to put these fields through, we need to replace the surface every 10 years.
Usually with the warranties, and Arson probably knows better than I do, but usually a field, the turf field, is warranted from anywhere from 8 to 11 years, in some level of that. So depending on the product that you buy, the level in which you buy it at, just like anything, you buy the most expensive, it has the best warranty. You buy everything less than that, kind of differs as you go down the hill. So depending on what you actually installed comes with a level of warranty. So again, right now, we are looking at, I think Varsity Field, where we put it in, is an 8 to 10 year warranty for us. That's what we're comfortable with. Anything after that is borrowed time as best we can. And our facility is taken care of very well. We do the maintenance, we do all the clean, we do all the things that we need to do. So I feel that in the last couple of years, and I've been here for 10, and Varsity Field, before we replaced it, was still a phenomenal field. It just was getting tired in areas and not being able to pass impact testing, which affected our kids.
So the warranty comes into play because we have to ask the company that provided the field to come do repairs, or are we basing the 10 years on the safety level of the field? I'm trying to draw that distinction.
The warranty is a good indicator of how long the field will last, because typically they wouldn't offer a longer warranty if the field was not going to stay in optimum shape. However, the fields tend to last a few years past the warranty, no problem, and they're continually improving. The original fields used to come with a 8-year warranty, and they would last 10, 11, 12 years. Now they come with a 10-year warranty, but are likely going to last 12 or 13 years. And that's going to continue to improve because of improvement in technology, the fibers, the backings, and so on. The warranty doesn't typically come into effect unless there's some kind of a situation that's unexpected. Normally, these fields just require routine maintenance, and it's not any issues that we can expect with them.
But the ultimate time to replace the field is based on I don't know what the factors are, the hardness of the field, the chance of injury goes up because it gets compacted, is that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The fields are tested for GMAX and HIC, head impact attenuation, and the crumb rubber tends to last 10, 12 years without significant effect, but it's a good housekeeping procedure and safety to test it yearly or every 6 months and make sure that the level of shock attenuation is in the safe range. very rarely do we see that the fields are not meeting it with proper care.
And I know a few years back, we probably several years back, we bought a special machine that was supposed to, put new pellets down, I guess, and fluff the field up. Are we still using that, or? Yeah, we are. So we're doing everything maintenance-wise we can to make it safe and extend the life of the field?
Absolutely.
The only thing that you can't control is UV degradation of the fibers. Over time, the fibers will just shrink and eventually disappear. And that's really when it's time.
Can I ask another?
Yeah, go for it.
So the other thing I'm curious about is the replacement of the grass fields with the synthetic turf. And I understand the arguments for synthetic turf, being able to use it, in all kinds of weather. Just, you're going to, I think you said 3 times as much use. I mean, are we leaning towards replacing more and more fields with synthetic and not having grass, or what are we doing?
Well, I think to answer that, so again, when we had the baseball field discussion last year, the conversation is always, in New England, we always have the conversation, is it grass or is it turf? So in this particular instance, we decided that the baseball field should remain grass. Again, we've talked about softball fields and things like that. There are certain fields that you want to have grass, and there are certain fields that you want to have turf. When you play soccer as much as we do here in this town, you play lacrosse as much as we do in this town, those fields make sense, even football now. So the standard on grass for us in the past has always been you'd play 6 football games on grass, and then you would shut your field down. You'd play a senior night soccer game, you'd play a senior night boys and girls soccer game on the field, and then after that, you wouldn't use it again. You'd let it rest over the winter, you'd have it for the spring, you'd play your 8 or 9 games on it again, and you'd be done. So again, in this instance, now we, again, can play these games at a level that we can't anywhere else. And again, the springtime is always the tell-all, for us. We have what I thought was a great winter with very little snow, and you feel like no snow means we're going to get on the fields earlier. But again, wetness and all the things that go into the field, still, they have to take their time. You have to do it right. And again, we try and accommodate that to get on them. So again, what we're trying to be able to do is pick the areas in which are the most sought after for the number of people that are going to use them, and give them the best chance at being used and the level of ability that we can do that at. So again, understanding Varsity Field and Marshall Simons being our 2 biggest users, if you would, that's the reason why we said that the turf field here would be the most beneficial. It also puts us, the high school and the middle school, we have the most number of kids playing there. And if you ask parents or people in the town, they would tell you they would rather practice on the turf later than practice on the grass any other time, especially in those sports.
So I'm thinking, I've heard different athletes that have a preference for grass versus synthetic turf. So that's kind of where I'm wondering the direction. Like we're doing what's economically the best, I guess, or the most use. But I'm just wondering if we should be fixing our fields that are grass and figuring out the drainage issues that keep them wet and so forth, but still having grass fields. Just I think some athletes prefer it. I think maybe injuries are less on the grass. I don't know if you guys have done any studies on that to get the numbers behind that, but I definitely heard people saying sports that you slide or hit the ground, the turf gives you rashes. You can also kind of catch your leg and twist a knee, twist an ankle, that type of thing. So I'm trying to balance with injuries and that type of thing as well.
Sure. If I could answer that in 2 parts. One, the use and the level of how many synthetic fields you should have versus grass. A part of our study looks into the demand on the various fields. And when you're able to rest the grass fields, you can keep them in better shape. They become less compacted, so they're safer for the athletes. And the optimum situation is to have sufficient turf that you can decrease the demand on the grass fields and still maintain your grass fields in good working order. If a grass field is very well taken care of, which takes a lot of effort, a lot of funding, a lot of treatment, especially if you can't use certain pesticides or certain fertilizers. It's even more difficult to maintain a natural grass field. But if you were to have a very optimal, high-level grass field, it's, of course, very safe. The problem is, despite best efforts, it's hard to maintain fields and very costly at that level. The only way to balance that is provide enough synthetic turf fields where the demand is on the natural grass is less, so you could keep it aerated, you can keep it in, better shape. And I think we're putting our best effort with the study to do that.
Yeah, I kind of like that approach that you're talking about, because I'd like to see a little effort and money go towards improving our grass fields as well, and maybe we strike some type of balance and we have some type of scheduling, as you're saying, so that we can keep those grass fields in nice, great condition as best we can. They're going to get chewed up a little bit by utilizing them, maybe a little less than the synthetic, and maybe we make some decisions on which sports are playing on which fields, that the ones that tend to destroy fields, maybe those sports stick more towards the synthetics. Okay, thank you.
Roger?
I'll try to take only a couple of questions so other people have time. So, there was a comment about saving money on mobilization, but when I look at the numbers provided, what is the savings going to be? Because both of the estimates included their own independent numbers for mobilization, so it didn't seem like there was any savings proposed. So I guess it's kind of a detailed question. What is it really going to end up costing in the best possible plan?
So there's typically a 3 to 5% savings when a contractor has both projects versus one at a time, and you can't guarantee that the same contractor gets both projects. Unless we're able to somehow bid them with separate timelines, then one contractor can get it and expect to carry it through the year. You're also looking at a year-over-year increase of anywhere between 3 and 5%, depending on inflation and cost of goods.
All right. It sounds like, since the way that you characterized the being able to do one before the other, or want to do the new fields before you redid brush field, it sounds like you're comfortable using brush field probably for a year or more while the newer fields get done. So it must not be that close to its safety concerns. In terms of funding, I think that we ought to aim for a fairly even set of funding over time. So for example, if you ask for $6.7 million this year, I wouldn't give you any money more for 2 more years. Whether it's bonded or free cash, we need a fairly stable amount of money that we're going to invest in these master plans. And if you have a big bump at the beginning, anyway, my own view would be we should do it out of free cash, not bond it. Because whenever you bond something, you're paying for it twice. But ultimately, it is a great project, and it's going to benefit a lot of people. So maybe that's more commentary than question. But
Okay. Additional? Steve?
Just a small one. The track repairs, you're still going to have the pavement underlying it. It's not, that base is not going to change? Because I think the high school
Right.
track is slightly different.
Right now, the intent is to resurface it. The one danger of leaving this project too long is you might go past the point of no return where you have to rip up the entire rubber surface and redo it from scratch, which is also going to increase the cost.
So it's a rubber surface underneath that track?
So it's asphalt pavement with the rubber surface on
Okay.
top, and this would be a respray of the color coat and the adhesives that go over it and restriping it.
And that's different from what the high school has?
It's the same that we
It
did.
is the same.
Oh, it's
Correct. So
it's
we
the
have-
same foam material on
Yep,
top?
Same on top, and then what happens is with the track is that you do it all from brand new, then you get a chance to, as it ages, you get a chance to recoat it, which gives you the re-rubberization, which gives you the brand new look, if you would. But then after that, you're back to having to redo it again because the adhesive doesn't work as well the
Third time.
next time.
Right.
And then a time after that, you have to rip up the asphalt as well and start from the base.
Awesome.
Like a
Thanks.
roof, like a roof, yeah. again, I'll invite rec up to comment themselves. Our conversations with them is the field plan that's already presented will be incorporated into their master plan. So they're not going to relook at the athletic fields that were already done in this field study. So that's the first part of that question. I do believe, and we know from our conversations, that rec does have some other priorities. So that will definitely materialize once we have, their completed study as well too. But this is not a school versus rec conversation. Again, they're supporting this conversation right now for this field, and we're continuing to talk with what future fields will look like. So with the information we have now in the master plan, in the field assessment plan, we have a look of what 10 years could look like. Once their field study comes out, it's going to include more than just fields. It's also going to include all rec properties, right? So they're going to have some different asks as well too. And we're still going to look at that as a collective prioritization of which fields and/or which recreation projects, will come forward.
But you're saying the rec, and they're here. So
Yeah.
you're talking about, the rec field study is assuming that this is getting done.
Brendan.
I didn't say that.
No.
No, I didn't say that.
You're saying part of their analysis that their consultants are looking at is an assumption or not?
So we have a completed 900-plus page document that has 13 or 14 athletic fields in it, and they're not all on school properties, right? Again, my understanding is that Recreation will take that 900-page document and integrate it into their recreation facilities master plan, right? Because the work was already done, let's say, at the middle school, the work was already done at Simons Park and so forth. Now, they may have some other properties and will have other properties that will have other details and other requests and stuff forward, so. Is that correct?
That's correct. So our engineer will take a look at the plan that was
They're going to make room for you,
completed.
Brendan.
There's a microphone, Brendan, thanks.
Weston and Sampson is going to take a look or incorporate their plan for the athletic fields. Our plan is athletic fields on our other properties, as well as all the site amenities, accessibility. So their plan focused on the athletic fields. Ours is focusing on the athletic fields that weren't included in that plan. The ones that were, they're not going to study them again. They're going to take that information, and then all other site amenities. So ours is all outdoor facilities. Theirs was athletic fields, and we'll incorporate that into our plan. So they're not assuming that this project is being done because I think it came out, partway through when our plan started. So, but this obviously would take a load off of some other fields that are used or overused in town.
So because you're using it, or, again, pardon my ignorance here, when they come out with a plan, as far as priorities for the rec side of things, knowing that this is a highly used
Right.
rec facility, that could be one of the bigger priorities. We've got to get this field done. As part of your plan, knowing that the schools are also considered as a high priority. So they're going to look at it kind of independently of what your priority, whether or not that will have the same priority as the school.
Correct, but I think that our goal after that is to look at our priorities, their priorities, and we have to come to an agreement on a larger document to move forward. We're at a 20-year, length of time period of not doing a lot with things because of money. And I think going forward, we need to be on the same page with the amount that we're asking for in the projects that we're asking to complete. 1 year, it could be 2 playgrounds or a very large playground project. It could be an athletic field. It could be a swimming pool, whatever, right? So I think once we have our study, we sit down and come up with a plan going forward, and that could shift. It could be the plan for 5 years, and then a priority jumps up that, was further down the list, but it's become more important. So, but I think Dr. Conti had mentioned, early in his presentation tonight, some kind of funding mechanism going forward, that we can handle all of these projects.
Ed?
Thanks, Chair. I am going to, Brennan, please stay. I'm going to ask one question. I think it's one you're going to have to answer in the affirmative at town meeting to get this funded. And I feel like, Dave, you're dancing all around the question. I feel like you're dancing all around the answer. But the question is this a top priority for the school's field plan and also a top priority for Park and Rec's field plans?
I can't answer it until we have, seen all of our information compiled. But it would be a priority from an athletic field standpoint. It would probably be at the top of the list on ours as well.
I think probably is maybe good enough, but I think you have
Not a good dancer.
I think you have to show some conviction there for town meeting to plunk down the money.
It is our first priority.
Right. Thank you.
Frank, I think you have something?
Well, he had two questions.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have a second one?
Well, I did have a second one, but
Well, let's hear it.
I thought that one was much more important, so I only asked for one. But if I may, how are you going to stage it, and what's the duration of the project?
Into the mic, please.
If both projects are awarded at the same time, they will still be constructed in stages, and one will be completed before the other. The turf and track respray is significantly quicker. We're probably looking at 10 weeks for that project, and we're looking at least approximately 4 months for the other one.
So it'll go into the school year, or even if you do it in the summer.
Depending on when we start.
Thank you.
That covered? Okay. Yeah. Frank?
Don't move down here because my laptop doesn't work right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Taking into perspective everything that's been said, so just assume everything that's been said, I stand with. I think this is a top priority, both from an athletic field point of view and from just for the town. And I have looked as much as there is available in that extensive report that you've got in the master plan draft. It's pretty clear that this would be something that I think would get a lot of priority. I think the problem I have with this is it's so much money right now that it's even worth, if you say it's a 3 to 5% cost penalty, well, out of $6 million, that might be a few $100,000 cost penalty. Forget about materials going up and escalation, and that goes on for the rest of our lives. It'll go up, it'll go down. I would split this up according to what you would recommend, where we would get as much of the grass field, get the grass field redone and turf it, right? So get the lower field turned into turf, and I do think we should go with turf because we're looking at this to be a very high usage facility intentionally. That's our intent. We wouldn't put all this ADA, new LED lights, new bleachers, blah, 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 if we didn't want everybody to go there and use it, including the neighborhoods. So it would be helpful to know roughly, if we did a split, what it would be and what that would cost for this project. And what I'm thinking is, if I got this right, you gave us two numbers, 4.7 and 1.9. So what would you see for redoing the lower field as a turf field split off with everything else that we should bring in? You want to bring in enough light. There's no reason to not bring in.
That's the two documents you saw.
Bleachers, that sort of thing.
That is the $4.7 million.
The two documents you have are broken up exactly like that.
Like that.
Two different fields.
So if we split it off, we'd be looking at 4.7. And the amount of delay on the 1.9 could be anywhere from 1 as many years as we can stretch out of it, I guess, right?
Yes, and again, the only caveat is, at some point, that rubber surfacing may become delaminated from the asphalt, so that number will go up because you'll have to rip up the rubber.
Yeah, so we're in a little bit of a box because the deterioration of the turf field that exists becomes a safety issue, and then it's a non-usable field. The lower field is as usable as it is, and if we did nothing, it would stay the way it is, but it doesn't really become a safety problem. So what you're saying is if we broke it up, and we broke it up doing the lower field first, we're really boxed into re-turfing the upper field as a minimum for $1 million in somewhere 2 to 3 years. I think that's what this boils down to.
2 million to 2.5 if it's delayed too long.
But you get other things thrown in on the upper field. Well, that's not just replacing the turf, is it?
It's the track and the turf.
Yeah, right, okay, all right, so that's my dilemma. But what I'm trying to figure out is a way actually to do it in pieces and do the first piece out of free cash sooner rather than later. And we can, we can commit the free cash. We have that free cash. We could commit it at any town meeting. We don't have to get a 2/3 bonding vote. We don't have to issue anything. We have to agree to do it. I don't like the idea of trying to do this whole thing at once. And I really don't like the idea of putting it all in the bond because it's a lot of money right now for our finances. It's something that I don't expect you to appreciate as a group, but we're really getting a little bit concerned about whether or not we get the debt exclusion if we go through with both the police station and Fox Hill. We bond all of that. We've got enough concerns that we need to clear the decks a little bit on what we bond and how much more we stack on there. And I think this is just too big a stack up in May to bond this whole project. If we could split it up, maybe we could be talked into using free cash. But I'm worried about the fact that you're saying that the turf field that's there has at most 3 years of life left in it. So I guess that's the dilemma. I don't have an answer in my head yet. So let me muse on that while they have some more.
Thank you for that.
Yes, Roger?
Your input.
A couple of questions. If it were done as one contract, what would the timing of the two pieces be? Would they be done contiguously in time, or would they actually be split by a summer across 2 calendar years?
Depending on when it was approved and what sports you wanted to utilize for, you can either do the backfields first and keep the track and have a track season and a field, and then once that season's completed, switch, or you could reverse that order. So you can pick and choose
Could they be separated by, say, 9 months? Or would you end up doing them back to back?
Yeah, I think we're able to do both, but I think separating them would make sense.
I guess, so what I was half thinking was that if they were split by 9 months, they'd be in different fiscal years. The actual outlay from free cash would be in 2 chunks. We'd still have to commit it up front, which means it wouldn't be free cash anymore. But it wouldn't be,
Yeah, think about that one.
yeah, maybe that doesn't help.
Be set free.
And then 2 other quick questions, or one comment. To make lower brush field usable, it has to be raised, whether it's grass or turf. That's sort of to make that useful. And then the other is a question about the athletic field master plan. How many other fields in there are recommended to be turf?
I can't recall off the top of my head, but there were several levels of recommendation where we gave you the choice. Whether if you went turf, this is the effect that it would have. If you went grass, this would be the effect, and I believe we left it up to the administration to decide.
And in the plan itself, Marshall Simons and Varsity Field are the 2 plans that we have to be turfed.
Yeah, I read those, I was just,
No,
I saw,
meaning in the plan itself, they gave us levels that we could go if you wanted the Cadillac versus the grass, and they gave us options. But in our viewpoint, right now, Marshall Simons and Varsity Field are the only two fields we're looking to be turfed even going forward.
Okay, so the number's
To answer.
close to zero, but not necessarily staying that way. All right, thank you. Sonia, did you have something?
Sorry,
Or sorry, it's
I
not-
think you've been itching.
Well, no, because I guess let me ask you this question. I know you want to do the lower field first, but in the interest of, if we split this project and the other one deteriorates, then shouldn't we think about doing, instead of waiting for it to deteriorate and spending more money on it, shouldn't we do the 1.9 project now? Now it really fits into free cash, I'm assuming, and then you move the other one out. By then, you've now taken care of a maintenance issue. I know nothing about fields, forgive me, but I'm just going on a numbers factor, right? But now, if I've heard you correctly, you say if we split it, we risk deteriorating Marshall Simons Field. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah,
Yes,
at
right.
the track.
Yes,
track component of
absolutely.
it. If you wait too long,
Then
you
we have to do
replace
it
the
over.
rubber as well, which is another couple $100,000.
Correct. So if in fact, both of these segments have merit, and you're saying if we postpone the 191, we risk having to spend more on it, because then it would have to be redone in its entirety, or however it's redone, right? And what if we do that first? So now we don't risk it being deteriorated and having to spend it. Half the project is now completed, but we're not putting $6.7 million forward. I mean, that is, I think you've heard it a couple of times from, sir, I can tell you what I feel, which I think is pretty clear now,
I'm
right?
starting to read between the lines.
Yeah, so, I think that, first of all, as I said originally, the project is great. So the fact that people are asking about the project is wonderful. I think the unease here is that we as a committee are charged with saying, can that in fact fit, right? So I can tell you, and I love that you and Rec are both saying it's not a Rec or a schools, because it's not, because ultimately that's what we're trying to accomplish, is just getting fields done, irrelevant of where the fields are, right? So Overlook, to me, is a community project that also has a good potential of a grant coming in. That's gonna, even if, let's just go there, it's a $2 million project or it's a $1 million project, right? You can very easily say, then we're taking $2 million and doing a community park on the Overlook side. We're taking $1.9 million and we're doing phase 1 of the school's field section, and then we're waiting for the rest of it to come out. No one is questioning that clearly the Marshall Simons Fields are our first priority for the schools. I appreciate that. So the problem is, I really want to see everything fit, and I really want to see a school and a police station pass. I mean, if I'm being totally blunt, right? I mean, I really want to see those things pass. I'm not trying to mince my words on that. And if we start filling up the debt schedule, we're going to have a difficult time looking at town meeting and talking about that. So the only thing I would ask you is what I kind of started with is the school committee prepared to split the project? And if in fact we're saying that the project, that if we put the 1.9 back, we're going to actually be a detriment to that track, then would you consider doing that first? And by the time you're ready to do the second field, now Rec's plans are coming out. These are fields that will alleviate some of the games that are played on some of the Rec fields, and now it all starts to melt together because we're coming forward. And now we're dealing with a 4.7 piece that we can see in a subsequent fiscal year. Oof, I'm tired. But I think that's my stance. I will say to you that as much as this one kind of bothers me because I can't do it, but I can't do it at 6-7. I just can't. I feel like we've got other priorities that we're trying to put before us. So is that something the school committee or the department?
Again, we're here presenting the project. We're looking for you to help us figure out how to make it real. So if that's what we have to do to make it real, then absolutely.
I mean, that would be my opinion. I don't know how the committee feels, but I don't know if that's in forms of motions. I don't know if you want to tell us which one you want to do. After listening to you all talk, it seems clear that I don't want that one to deteriorate. in interest of doing a new field, in interest of coming back in a year or a year and a half and saying, well, it deteriorated because we didn't do it, so now let's do it. Why don't we just get that done then, and so we're not deteriorating it? And that's it.
Ed?
All right, thank you. So if I am not mistaken, the brush field was on the capital schedule for next year, not this year, so I had assumed that we safely had another year on that. Okay. Then, to comment on the finances, I'm not sure I'm convinced by the financial argument that's been posited here. The way to spread payments forward is to bond. We don't have any problem with our capacity to bond that we're trying to manage. We potentially would have a problem with our total levy capacity. And it's more levy to pay it out of free cash this year than it is to pay a 20th of it on bond.
But the free cash exists, it doesn't affect the levy at all.
Right.
Yes, but you tax somebody for it, and then you're going to sustain that. I mean, we're sustaining this, taxing at a rate that leaves us with plenty of free cash that we can grab for these projects. And so I think splitting up the project is not, I don't believe it's a financial consideration. I think it's a political consideration. It's putting this bonding on top of the police station and then the school coming next. And I think that is a heavy lift to ask people sequentially to make these decisions that sound hard. But I think that this project, if we were to delay it a few years, it's going to overlap with our big projects that we're looking at just the same. Shift them by a few years, it's all the same. We've got a lot of big projects. And if this is a priority, I believe it is. It's intuitively obvious to me that another turf field would help us a lot. When we considered this a few weeks ago, we finished up just in time for me to go get my 8th grader and take him to soccer practice, and he was out on varsity field until 10 p.m. because that's what we do, because we don't have the field capacity in the spring. Right? So I see the need. It really comes down to politics of getting people to vote for it.
Doug?
I guess a few things now. One, I think splitting it up is more palatable. I struggle with bonding, and when you say, yeah, then it's just 1/20th in the year. But if you're talking about bonding this for 20 years, in 10 years, half the value of it's gone and you're spending it again. So before we ever pay for the thing, we're paying for half of it again. Are we going to bond that? I mean, what does that look like in a bonding schedule to where, you're still paying for 10 years for something that now you're replacing again?
The durations don't match, I understand.
You don't bond for past a lifetime.
So that's a challenge for me. Second, I understand what Sonia's saying, and it might be more, maybe we could fit it in this year for the cheaper one, but then you're literally replacing it, maybe 20% of its lifetime early because we can afford to. What's where are we on the track? Because we keep talking about the field, but the track is the thing that's more likely to break down first. How much time and how much does it cost to resurface the track to protect it so we don't lose that?
I believe the estimate has it at $350,000.
Yeah, I've got too many things open.
And this is just off the top of my
Yeah,
head,
that's fine.
$350,000 to respray it, and if you were to rip up the rubber and re-rubber it, about $750.
Yeah. But how, do we know what shape it, I mean, I know it's got a lifespan, but I thought it'd be about.
So I think, again, in the conversation that we had earlier, because we are not running here as a mainstay, we're not in bad shape.
Okay.
And that we're not in, it's not end of life tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We have very specifically taken care of our primary track, and we use it for everything You've been around to know. So again, that's why this would give us the opportunity to, again, move to a different direction, but this is not end of life tomorrow. Again, with Brush Field right now, we very specifically, in the way we did business, broke it into 2 phases for us as well. So again, understanding that we, again, in the ideal world, not dollars and cents world, the backfield being done first for us alleviates all of the pressure because it adds 2 fields where we are replacing 1. We can be on it. We are on it in half the time. We are now giving it up to do those things. While we are replacing the existing field, we have lost nothing in the rebuild mathematically, but we are gaining another whole field when it's done. So again, ultimately, that was the reason why, again, inadvertently, if you will, we broke it into phases because we understood how we needed to do it. Financially, we understand it's a whole different argument. So again, going back to the point, neither brush field or the track is at end of life tomorrow. We have time. That's why the project became important. So again, understanding where we're going with this project, we put it together knowing that over the next year and a half, this field is going to at some point fail an impact test, and it's going to be coming back to you as we can't use it for safety. Right now, we're trying to adhere to warranty and doing the right thing.
Just want to add one comment as well. I can't factually back this up, but what we've seen and what the estimates are, if this were to be funded as a single or a whole project, by the time it's bid and goes out, it's unlikely that this project would happen in July or August, and we have about till October to make this project happen. If not, we get into the following season. So we're really looking at about a year from now when we actually get into construction. So that's something to consider for us, and that's what we've ran into some of our projects. So that being said, funding one or both of these projects now most likely is probably going to put us in a March, April timeframe of next year for installation, but possible that we could start some of the project prior to the winter season. So that's why we look at the project now and think that we have this season to play and possibly the early fall season to play. But once we get into next year, right, we'd run into that same conversation, bidding it and so forth, and being potentially 6 to 8 months out away into a following year.
Mike?
So does the 4.7 have to be 4.7?
Again, I think at the beginning, I said ultimately, everything could be broken down. So we could do lights one day, we could do the field one day, track one day. It just impacts the actual site and the usage on there. We can't be playing on the field when the track is being sprayed. We can't be playing on the field when the field's being repaired. When we have construction crews installing the lights, that field would be shut down. But ultimately, yes, it can be broken down.
Yeah, if we just did, I'm just kind of, throwing around ideas here, but if we just did the turfing of the lower field, and that's, essentially it, what would that come in at?
I have
I have it on my phone. Just a second.
There's bleachers, port, it says, I think that's the 2.6, Mike, item number 3.
That's the 2.6 million.
The only challenge is
That's the big one.
accessibility is going to be difficult to go in and drill foundations for the lights once you're turfed in. You're kind of blocked in. At a minimum, you'd want to put the foundations and the conduits in, but even then, it's a massive crane to try to get the far lights in. But just looking here, 2.65 million for turf, 2.65 million for the double turf field. The lights were another 850,000. The bleachers were 300, and there's 175 in demolition, mobilization, etc. So if you were to exclude the lights, it's $850,000 reduction, and the bleachers are another 300,000. So taking those two out, you're looking at 3.5 million approximately.
It's a little unfair to try to replan a project on the fly. So
Well, and the way it's built and constructed, like we were just talking about, like, again, we built walkways. We have things in the plan right now. If you go down to the lower field now, the only way to walk around the field is if you walk on the grass. So again, building all the roads, the walkways. What we haven't really even talked about is if you look at the plan on the right-hand side, right under the S in fields, is the accessibility that, again, marries the school to the field. So again, we're building an accessibility a handicap accessibility ramp, so that now we have people that are in the school, are leaving the school, using the ramp to go down to the facility, walk around the facility to get into the facility. So we tried to marry all of those things together so that we were using deficiencies in where we were with the school to marry back to the project.
In terms of, and I'm sorry if this may sound a little self-serving, but I know timeline came up, and if the project was to be approved, there's going to be 3 to 4 months in the design process, another couple of months in permitting with conservation, this resources area. So if at least the design funding was permitted, we could get you, which is small money compared to the overall project, we could at least have the projects prepared and ready to go for, by the time the larger number is approved. Just something for consideration.
So did you say one whole field and design?
Right, yeah, that would make sense if you're to do the track and the turf replacement and the design of the lower field, then you can be at least ahead in the game.
Okay. I'm going to throw a few things out there since we've heard from everyone else. I might as well, too. Yeah, I guess there's a lot of things going on here. At $6.7 million, I do think it's a big chunk to be doing all in 1 year. And when I look at it, it's absolutely going to create a beautiful project. I'm wondering if we need to have quite this much, even if we did want to do it all. And I'll get into particulars on that. I do agree with, I think, Frank, who's saying, I think, you have the disadvantage of the police station in Fox Hill coming up here. So, wanting to see what happens with a debt exclusion to understand what kind of headroom we have there in the budget, I think will be very useful. And obviously, you don't have control over that. As I think Roger may have pointed out, I'm not seeing the economies of scale on this, doing them together. I mean, we have $75K for mobilization times 2. We have 100 plus 150K for the temporary items. So, it seems like everything is doubled up, even though they're added together. In general, it seems like, and this may be my non-sportiness showing through, but it seems like there's a little more wish list in here than needs to be. While it might be nice having 3 football fields in town, I'm wondering, is 2 maybe enough? I'm sure we'll use them if we have them, but by adding a football field, we now have thrown in a scoreboard, we've thrown in bleachers. It's actually adding quite a bit to have it be a football field versus 2 soccer fields. So, I'm wondering if we thought about getting economies of scale, and if we thought about removing some of the things that are maybe a little on the nice-to-have side as opposed to need-to-have side, it seems like we could reduce this a fair amount. Probably the 2 overriding things, though, are the uncertainty with where we are with our other big projects and not having a single master plan. I think what I don't think we want to be in is a situation where rec and schools have sort of going to the well and competing with each other, so to speak. I think we'd like to see that cohesive capital plan with here's all the money, or here's all the projects we want to do, and we agree jointly that these are priorities in terms of our fields and parks. And I'm pretty sure when we get that worked out, we would, at least personally, I would be uncomfortable saying that the number is going to be 6.7 million every year. I think we're going to end up at a lower number than that. So figuring out how to make that plan work out, and this is where, yes, it's always cheaper to buy things now, but it's not cheaper if you then spend more every year, which is I think where this leads to. So I think what I personally would like to see is the long-range plan that says across rec and schools, here's the amount we think it's going to take to maintain the fields, with our turf every 10 years, with, whatever maintenance we want to do and so forth, and see that plan and see what the number is per year so that we can all buy in that that's the number we actually want to do. Because personally, I'm not comfortable with a number this high. So I think for me, that's part of where the let's split it up comes from, is let's get it down to fit within whatever we imagine the annual budget is for these kind of projects. And it seems eminently splittable to do that. So that's where I'm coming from on this. All right, do we have any further discussion?
Maybe just a comment. Given the comment about design, there are a number of big projects that we do in town where we actually approve the money for the design first, and then when we come back, we're presenting, a detailed design with all of the things and an exact cost. These have both come in kind of as, well, there's a big round numbers, and we'll figure out what to do within that. So I'm kind of generally would favor for projects this big that we actually do the design work first. I know that ends up delaying things if you can't plan ahead, but I guess in terms of where I'm currently thinking, I'd be comfortable with a fairly large number doing one of these projects from free cash.
Frank?
I'm not going to comment on that. I want to just give you, just make sure we're all on the same page here.
Yep.
So my battery doesn't blow up again. Hang on. All right, so if we, on the free cash, this is more for them at the moment. On the free cash rollout, we took everything out that we were going to bond, which was really only a couple of things. We withdrew a couple of things like OPEB and stabilization. And if we spent everything that's in the warrant that we laid out for free cash, we would have 16.7 million left. If you pony something else on top of this, you just start subtracting from the 16.7.
Yeah.
Right, and we were obviously, there was a lot of discussion about using that to buy down a lot of the debt we were already incurring.
There are more things to do with that money than we have money. There is zero question about that.
We can quickly get that to zero.
And then some.
So to put that in perspective, Roger.
And we're not gonna,
Right.
make it zero.
And to Ed's point, if you're going to put something on the bond, you need to make it worthwhile, right? In other words, I'm not saying buy more than you need, but clumping together what it is you really want to buy and issue the bond and then ban it out in stages is the most sensible way to do it. So say this 6 point whatever it is, you could whittle it down some. But say it's $6 million and you put it on the bond. Over a period of about a year and a half, it'll all be floated. You'll pay off the bands and you'll start paying that in addition to whatever else we bought. And the problem that what we're asking the taxpayer to do is not just the 150 and the 200 for police and whatever. You're asking for another, another $50 maybe, something like that, right? That you'd be tacking onto the tax rate for the next 20 years, whatever. And we can always buy down the bonds with free cash when we choose to. The reason that I would not choose to do that in any big rush is I'd like to see where we end up with the debt exclusion, and I'd like to see what, if any, impact this has on our AAA rating as we burn down reserves. So right now, if we spend everything without this, we're looking at about 25 million in total reserves. That includes stabilization and well, a little bit more actually, and the 16-year. And anything you take out of this, you start dropping that number down. And I would feel more comfortable doing that next year than I would this year, so we know what actually gets bonded, what gets excluded, and where all of these end up that have already been put on the docket. So in my mind, the details of how to split this up and whether we should do it and merging it with the master plan, that needs to be worked out a little bit more. And if we came back in 1 year with this right at the top of the Parks and Recreation master plan, whether you did it in 1 or 2 pieces, would be better than trying to sort that all out now and starting to hack it up. And that's why I wouldn't be in a rush to use free cash to do what I think is the right first piece. Because if you go after the piece you're talking about, which is really what they're recommending, which is the lower field, that's what we need. That has the least urgency, even though it takes lots of pressure off the fields. It has much benefit, but nothing's broken at the moment because we haven't done that. You see what I'm saying? Nothing's broken. We're trying to make everything a whole lot better and get more life and usability out of all our fields by making that facility multi-purpose, full use, and add to the inventory of the turf fields. But if we waited a year to do that, that doesn't strike me as a bad thing to do. But let's not kill it, right? What we're trying to do is plan this better. And so for that reason, I wouldn't just use the free cash right now and wait. And we might even do it with free cash in a year. Who knows? We may very well. But, it's a little early to make that decision in my mind.
Just a comment on that. I take your point, Frank, and I know that it's true that if, even if it's bonded, at some point in the future, if we have free cash, we can choose to use the free cash at that point in time. And so you can delay the committing to free cash.
Okay, I think it looks like we've exhausted the topic and ourselves on that.
Mr. Chairman, again, I do think, not tonight, but at a different time, it would be worthwhile for us to talk very specifically about what you had mentioned in terms of predictability. I think we've done that with technology infrastructure, and I think for about 15 years, and no one's had to worry about the wireless becoming out of date. There's a capital line in the operating budget every year. I think town meeting has accepted that we need to sort of make things function. When I first came, I think we had a PBX system, and now we've sort of done that without a whole lot of peaks and valleys in regards to technology infrastructure. We are perfectly willing. We had a great meeting with REC to work with REC. We don't want this to be a competition. We share a lot of the same facilities. Burlington has a limited number of facilities. I think there's going to be potentially an expensive buy-in because we have fields that are in some pretty rough shape. And then I think if there's a predictable number that you all are comfortable with, I'm assuming that we can work together and work sort of under that number. But there needs to be a number, or else you're just going to get these big chunks that are going to be unpredictable. I'm not saying what that number should be, but at some point, it would be great to have that conversation where you all are comfortable. That doesn't mean we're not going to have a crisis or some environmental issue or something to solve. But I do think doing it this way is going to be, we're just going to continue to have this conversation sort of over and over again. We've done it with parking lots, I think, too, where you guys have done a great job providing money. There were some years when town parking lots were resurfaced, and some years when a school would come up, we'd get a school done. No one expected all their parking lots done in 1 year. So we have the history of collaboration that we would like to continue, but the total cost in the 900 pages on the school field side, if we did everything, is
Hi.
I'm sorry.
a big number, and it's not. I don't think it's a made-up number, and I think it's sort of the fields get a ton of use. So, and no one expects that number, obviously, but if we think about sort of the 10 or 20 years or what we're leaving behind, and to Mr. Davison's point, if we have the synthetic fields on a cycle, then we should sort of know what we need to set aside every year. Whether you do that in sort of free cash in your mind or in some other mechanism, it shouldn't be a surprise when these expenses come up. So I think that's exactly what you said, but I'm saying we've had those conversations on the school and park and rec side as well. Would love to go to town meeting, and I don't think we can go to town meeting unless Park and Rec is affirmed this is our first priority, because it doesn't sound right. And so this is, again, a firm first priority for schools. Mr. Monaco, if you're saying we need to wait a year or two, I don't know what that means. We're not going to go to town meeting if Ways and Means doesn't support the project. That's just a waste of time for everybody.
Definitive. I would say a year is enough time to sort out the integrated master plan. We'll sort out what got financed for Fox Hill Police Station and how. And we still going to pass with a 2/3 vote, both of those. So a year from now, we're going to know a ton more than we know today. And that's what I would target.
Again, I have to certainly talk to the school committee, but again, we go needing a 2/3 vote with a 0 to 11 support from Ways and Means. I'm just saying, I don't, being the one who's going to get stuff thrown at them, I'm just saying, I just want to make sure that we sort of have a plan moving forward. I don't think anyone is questioning the need for this project, but I do think, thinking about it, Mr. Riggs, you talked about getting some more detailed design work and maybe getting a more firm cost, or, like I said, I don't want to go with a $6.7 million warrant article if that's not the right thing to do. So you all can think about that. Again, I don't think we need an answer tonight, but I'm going to have to talk to these gentlemen in the school committee. Again, without your support, I don't really think it makes sense to bring up, unless you want to have a community conversation about the need for this type of facility. Like I said, I don't know.
I'm glad you said we'll refer to it as the Conti plan from now on.
Right.
Have naming rights on that back field.
Well, I'm sorry?
We talk about naming rights on that back
Yeah,
field.
no, thank you.
All right, well, I do think we need to take a vote on it so that it's clear what we are thinking. If anyone would like to
We'll make the motion.
make a motion.
I'll make the motion
To what?
to approve or to actually to.
You can make a motion to approve, and we'll vote yes or no.
Okay.
For the whole project.
I'd rather not use double negatives if we
Yeah,
can
yeah.
avoid it.
I'll make a motion to approve the project as it is in the warrant, and then we can vote it down.
Okay.
I was going to say, if you get a second.
I got a second.
We just got one. All right, very good. All right, so we'll do a roll call here. David?
No.
Sonia?
No.
Roger?
No.
Ed?
Yes.
Steve?
No.
Frank?
No.
Mike?
No.
Chris Delaney?
Yes.
Doug?
No.
Chris Campbell?
Yes.
Cheyenne?
Yes.
Chair votes no. That's 480. All right, let's move on to Article 7-19, which was also tabled from April 10th. Do we have any updates on that from the subcommittee?
I'll just reiterate the vote, which was 5-0 in favor.
Okay. And do you have updates on that, Dr. Connie?
I brought an expert, so
Excellent.
which one was this?
We love experts.
Was this the middle school or
This is the middle school critical building systems upgrade. And I believe the thing that caused us to table this was the $50,000 operational and communications issues resolution box.
Can you say a quick thank you to those?
Yes, and thank you all for coming. I appreciate all your time on this. Thank you.
So Marshall Simon's Critical Systems, there's 3 parts to this. One is the refrigerant detector. I don't believe you have any questions on that, but that's $16,000. There's fire alarm door magnets, normally referred to as either smoke arms. So those 37,000 requests. And then there's a field unit communications for $50,000. In the backup, and I will stand firm on this is mostly configuration, software configuration, and manual labor. The reason this number is set up is so we do have an HVAC contract with Train. Train is the system that's in the middle school. This was installed in 2004, the boiler repair system, and then also renovated in the classroom and the teaching spaces during the MSBA renovation. So we have 2 different mixed systems, and then we have some existing ductwork and some more air handling units that were put on the roof in multi-phases. 3 years ago, this is 3, not 2, so 3 years ago, we also replaced a controller that was end of life, which is the main controller for the whole entire system. Now, what you're going to ask me, well, why $50,000 when we have all the stuff?
Actually, I'm just going to ask to back up a little bit since I asked the question last time. What is it?
Again, it's, majority is just software and troubleshooting configuration to get the system for the 155,000 square foot and the full HVAC system, Marshall-Simons, configured, running efficiently, so we can use all of the motors to their capacities, to multiple stages, adjust dampers electronically, which right now we can't. So we have systems that we can control set points on, but we have a lot of communication errors in all of the HVACs and rooftop units and so forth, so we're not maximizing the efficiency of how we can use them. And this really would be able to integrate the whole entire system into a more efficient, connected system that we don't currently have.
So this is a monitoring and control system is what this is? Is that?
No, this is saying, so let's just, computer terms, we bought a new computer for it, but one of the programs on the computer right now is only saying on and off and setting a temperature. But we have all these automations that aren't capable because they're not programmed. So we're trying to do all of that to the 225 plus HVAC components in that building that right now only have single or singular functions when they're really capable of a lot more.
So this is taking input from 225 sensors of some sort and deciding how to control the system? Is that?
Correct.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yes.
That's what I was trying to get to.
Yeah, I just want to put a fine point on it for everyone else. It's a box. That's the line item we're questioning, right? Control box.
It's a box with software,
Yeah,
is what
so
I'm hearing.
what you're saying is that there's a computer in there, and a lot of the cost is the programming and configuration.
So I'm not asking for a box. We have the box. I'm asking for trained
stuff to put in the
technicians.
box.
Exactly.
Okay.
To configure the boxes, all the boxes that we have to talk to each other.
So there's no hardware component to this then?
There's minimal, a sensor here that needs to be replaced, upgraded. It's mostly configuration, software coding. Correct.
Got it.
There's no majority box material in that part of the request.
Oh, so was it $50,000? Is that what the cost? Yeah, and it's basically, it sounds like services.
Correct. Yep.
And they've said it's going to take X number of hours to do it, and they give you an hourly rate, and you come up with $50,000.
No, they actually lump sum the whole entire job based on, again, they work with us currently. This is outside of our scope of work. So they'll do it on a time and materials basis. But instead of doing that and eating up, the operational costs that we have built into the budget right now, and taking so long to do it, it actually makes more sense to dedicate the time and services to really get that building up and running as a whole package. So it's a lump sum cost.
Roger?
Just real quick, and I probably know the answer, is there any idea what the payback period is? I mean, if you improve the efficiency of the controls of heating and cooling and everything, you could hope that you'll end up saving money, but I realize it's probably not predictable.
So it's not predictable, but right now we can basically use our bills as a predictor, where since we can't, let's say, adjust dampers fully or even run into a second stage of a motor, we're basically running in an on-off pattern. Once we can step down, obviously, into a second stage of a motor, obviously you'll use a little bit less power.
All right, I'll cross my fingers and you can tell us
Yeah.
later whether it worked.
The bigger reason we're doing it is so we have more granulation, the temperature degrees in the classroom, right? So if, let's say, it's 78 degrees in there, it's basically 78 degrees, and it could be a set point of 75, right? We just don't have that flexibility to really be that accurate with it. And, 3 or 4 degrees in a classroom with 20 kids is a big deal. So that's really what we're trying.
We're running open loop now, and you want some feedback so that we have better control.
Correct.
Got it.
Make a motion.
So it's a quality issue, is what I'm hearing.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, anything further? All right, enough engineering talk. All right, this is Article 719, Marshall Simons Middle School Critical Billing Systems Upgrades for $113,203. David?
Yes.
Sonia?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Chris Delaney?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Chris Campbell?
Yes.
Cheyenne?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, that's 12-0-0. All right, and final school article is Article 726, the Pine Glen fencing. Do we have any updates from subcommittee?
We do not. The subcommittee vote was still 5-0.
Okay, and just to refresh our memory, there was some confusion that the cover page was saying 180 feet, but the quote was for 368 feet, so where do we stand on that?
So I checked in with the Assistant Town Manager, Mr. Denizio, and not exactly sure why there are two different versions. The printed version does have what you all were presented with earlier, that has just the single 180 feet of fencing. The backup does say 368. The digital copy that is available to town meeting members and on the website lists the correct number. So again, we are asking for the 360 approximate feet. So it's 368 is the actual number, but again, when they go lay the fence out, plus or minus a few feet, and the backup material digitally and on the website has that number correct on the cover sheet of
The quote matches what you want is the important thing.
Correct.
Okay, good.
Point
Frank?
of information on that?
Yep.
So you've already been to capital budget with this one. What did they vote on? The same thing, the same length, the full length?
Yeah, so 360 feet was the description as well.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yep.
Right, the key thing is the quote is for the amount they actually want, so that's good.
Make a motion to approve.
Second?
Okay. This is Article 726, Pine Glen fencing for $25,025. David?
Yes.
Sonia?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Chris Delaney?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Chris Campbell?
Yes.
Cheyenne?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, that's 12-0-0. Thank you very much. You've been very patient with us. I appreciate it. All right, I think that takes care of all the school articles. There was a request to move the police station Article 20 to be the next one. Is that correct, Mike?
Yeah.
Okay. So this Article 20, the police station construction project, does subcommittee have a report on that, Mike?
We did our initial report a couple weeks ago. There's really nothing additional to add.
Okay.
Subcommittee was 2-0 in favor.
All right, and we have Police Chief Brown with us here today, and I believe you have a presentation on this, which Doug is putting up right now?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Is that what you'd like to talk about next, or?
Yes, please.
Okay, let's go for it.
I have with me Kevin Witzel from the architectural firm KBA, Castle Booz Associates. And obviously, Town Administrator Sagarino and John Denizio will be here as well to answer any questions. So in the interest of not belaboring the obvious, I believe we're in the need of a new station. So going on through this presentation, hopefully we can answer a lot of your questions that we've anticipated, and we've got the subject matter expert here to answer any others. But basically, why do we need the new station? Why are we coming before you? So as you're aware, we occupy the Union School. It was built originally in 1897 as a 4-classroom school. Went through some renovations in 1923. More classrooms were added and indoor plumbing. It went through some other renovations in the 80s and then finally became the police station in 1992 when it was determined that the library would not be able to use the building because they would need too much reinforcement in the building. So we had to move out of the annex because we were running low on space. We moved over to the school. So Unfortunately, since we've been in there, the layout has never been an efficient layout. There are some serious safety concerns within the building, and there are some security concerns. And those security concerns are getting worse as time goes by. I won't speak directly about some of the security concerns just for fear of exploitation, but if anybody's come through the building, I've been sure to point those things out to people as we've gone through. So this shouldn't be a surprise coming before anybody, because back in 2009, town meeting established a town meeting facilities inventory committee, and they published their results in January of 2010, and then again on June 29th of 2010. And what they found specifically as it relates to the current police station at 45 Center was that the long-term resolution for that building was a complete replacement of the facility in the next 10 years. So again, that was in 2010. And that was provided that within the next 5 to 10 years of that report, some major improvements were done to the building. In terms of what those improvements were supposed to be, they identified the need to deal with pooling water in the roll call room. That has not been addressed, so much so that the room is such of a condition we don't use it anymore. We use it for quick training sessions, and that's it. We don't allow people in that room. There was major flooring degradation back in that time. That degradation just continues to get worse. And then the boilers needed to be replaced. I'm unsure whether or not that actually ever happened. So the facilities inventory committee published its results, and they said the long-term resolution is a complete replacement of the building in the next 10 years, and it should be a new building built specifically for the police. And if you take that in context, basically they moved us, a police station, into an old school. And we are a police station in an old school. It doesn't function like a police station, and, you know, the warts on it have just gotten worse over time. One of the other things that the committee had noted was because the current station was situated in the central location, the recommendation was to undertake a complete renovation of the existing building when the time comes. We're at that time, and I will address the renovation issue as I go through the presentation. And Kevin would be able to speak to that point directly as well. So what we did is we went to the September 2022 town meeting, and luckily we were fortunate enough to get funding for a feasibility study, $150,000. We went through the process over the next couple of months after town meeting, and in January 23, we contracted with Castle Booze, KBA, to perform the study. And we tasked them with these notable deliverables here, and I'll identify them just basically by task. First was to identify whether the current building could be renovated, and we'll speak to that. Number two was identify other town-owned sites that could be used as a police station for the obvious reason to keep the cost down. Three, identify whether the current site could be used for new construction if, in fact, renovation was not possible or could not be done. And then finally, determine the size of the building and necessary land acreage that we would need to accommodate the program, the new station, based on what KBA found through the feasibility. We've gone through the feasibility process. It just recently concluded. A lot of work went into it. It started by KBA coming out and basically looking at every aspect of our operation. They came in, spent countless hours with myself and my staff determining how our operations work, right down from our chain of commands to how our supervisors act, to our different divisions and units, our calls for service per year, population, expected growth, etc. From that, they were able to determine that the program that they were coming forward with would be a 36,500 square foot police station. That would be a 2-story building with a partial basement. And that would be what we need to meet the needs. And that program would require about 2.7 acres of land. Now, when we came up with that program, we quickly realized that we really didn't have the land within the town center that would accommodate that building. So no other town-owned land was available, which was the best location for response times. Also, that New England feel being on the center and ease of operations for the department. So in order to best fit that new building, the adjacent land would need to be used, and that's why we're going before town meeting for the 2 rezoning articles. Based on this information in the program, KBA came out with program design, which includes a hinged building, which I'll show you further in the PowerPoint. This hinged design would allow the best option for operational efficiency. It would give extra space to the abutters that they don't have right now, and we would use less of the adjacent lot by hinging the building, which you'll see in a minute. And through all of this, the new building estimated cost came in at $46.225 million, which is what's on the warrant article. One question that's come up is, did we look for state grants? There are no state grants available for public safety buildings. It's unlike the MSBA for the schools. There are some federal grants out there, but as you can imagine, they go more towards metropolitan areas and underserved areas. So that's basically not something we're going to be successful with. So as a result of the feasibility and the information that started to come out, the Select Board, through the Town Administrator, appointed a police station building committee. The members are on here, but what you'll notice is there are a couple of members of the Select Board, the Town Administrator and Assistant Town Administrator, myself and the Deputy Chief, 2 members of the Planning Board, a member of the Zoning Bylaw Review Committee, 1 from Land Use, 1 from Ways and Means, 1 from Capital Budget, and then 4 residents. We did that for the obvious reason, as we track through this program, we have the subject matter expertise from the different boards and committees to weigh in on the different stages of the feasibility as well as the design, if we're fortunate enough to get the funding from town meeting. So and all of those members have been invaluable. I'll speak specifically about some of the planning board issues that have come up to show how that committee has been an advocate in getting the project forward, with little obstacles. Some of the concerns that have come up that we've heard about as we've gone through certain boards, why is there no plan? You'll see on here in the PowerPoint, there is a preliminary plan. There is no final design, however. The plan shows a conceptual new building on the current lot at 45 Center Street, along with some of the adjacent land from the open space, which we'll refer to as the sculpture park. But the final design can't be completed until we know how much land we can actually use, okay? So a fully completed set of designs costs roughly 10% of the construction cost. Not the project cost, but the construction cost. And it just wouldn't be cost effective to complete those before you know whether or not town meeting is going to approve the project. So that's why there is no final set of designs, but there is in fact a plan, which we'll get to in a minute. Some of the other concerns that have come up, landscaping. KBA is intimately familiar with the concerns about the landscaping, trees, the parking areas. And I bring you back to the planning board. We have 2 members on our committee. They were very open and honest to let us know, listen, the planning board probably is not going to want to see a sea of asphalt in the town common, so we've got to be judicious in the use of parking. KBA came back with a couple of schematic designs which are on here. They kept those parking issues at the forefront of the plan, and as part of that as well, the landscape architects that will get in to the process during the design phase are very intimately familiar with the fact that we need to keep as many trees as possible, keep the existing canopy as best we can to allow for the abutters' privacy as well as the station's privacy. Abutters don't want to see the station. We don't want them to have to see the station. So we're going to work in line with that. But that site survey, in order to do that, will come on and after if the project goes forward. Because again, we have the plan, but you can't do the final designs until we know if we get the project. Kevin has some real-life stories about how they've saved some of the trees and worked around some of these problems in different communities. So it isn't something that's going to be foreign to KBA as they go forward. Historical significance has come up. So the station right now does not meet historic guidelines under the state, and it's never been federally registered. Now, I've done a little bit of research on my own, and I've also spoken to KBA's experts. Basically, the state, when you go onto the state registry, they concern themselves basically with the outside envelope. They don't necessarily care about the inside, they care about the outside. But the problem is, since 1992, and even before, since the police station's been in there, there's been no effort at all to maintain the historical character of the building. We have replaced the vinyl siding in the windows in 2006. Anybody driving by would have been able to see that. There was no challenge from any of the historical committees in town. It was just allowed to be done. There are modern construction materials on the front porch. The front porches have been done over a couple of times. The interior has basically been renovated floor to ceiling based on heavy amounts of water damage and mildew. So I guess how I answer the historic, and I know it may not be a nice response to say, I guess, but there's a difference between historic and old, right? When something gets old, you replace it. When it's historic, you preserve it. The town hasn't done what it needed to do to preserve it, and now here we are 32 years later in this building, and it's just continued to fall into ruin, okay? Finally, an issue to address is some of the parking. The new design, again, had called for 66, the new design that you're going to see here, the plan calls for 66 secured spaces, 10 for the public. We did anticipate, again, that the planning board would have some concerns over the planning, so we were very conservative in that. We then brought this same presentation to the land use, and what we got back for feedback from land use was, you don't have enough parking. So we're kind of in that conundrum about, how we best deal with that. And again, that's going to be Kevin's thing to deal with, but, we are listening to everybody who's giving us the input and the feedback. We're reporting it back to KBA, and we'll see what he comes up with and how it goes forward should we move forward. So we're keeping all of these issues in mind as we go forward, hoping for the ultimate approval. One of the major issues that have come up with a couple of people is, what about the firing range? So the short answer is yes. We plan to move the current firing range. Now, we have a 4-lane firing range in the station. We upgraded that probably about 6, 7, 8 years ago, maybe not that long, at the cost of about $80,000. And what we were able to do was we were able to get the range rifle rated so we can practice with the rifles in the building, and that range system is portable. We did that with the anticipation that someday we would be moving it, hopefully, into a new building, and that still is the plan. The new building would call for a 5th lane, but again, those 4 that are there would come over with us. And as part of the firing range conversation, because as we try to get this approved, some people have said, well, why do you need a firing range? I will say on the record, I would be vehemently opposed to removing the firing range. The firing range gives us countless ability to train our staff, and we don't want to go backwards. It's paramount importance to us. It allows for 24-hour, 7-day-a-week use. It allows for low light, no light, blue light, moving, angling targets. We practice with the duty weapons, the tasers, the less lethal launchers, which are the rifle launchers, as well as the rifles now. We can do that at 3 in the morning as easily as we do it at 10 in the morning, and the neighbors aren't hearing it. If an officer on midnights, for instance, is having a problem, we need to get them qualified, we need to work with them, we're allowed to do it. We don't have to go to an outdoor range that we share with another community where we're restricted by bylaws on what time we can shoot, or we don't have to pay the insurance or any overtime costs to send the officers over there. So the benefits by far outweigh the disadvantage to take that range out. So we also have a program that we do on duty where at any point in time, a range instructor could go up and grab anybody on duty, myself included, and say, okay, we're going down to the range and we're going to shoot, a magazine worth of ammunition, and we're going to practice X type of live fire, okay? And it keeps us constantly on our toes, and it keeps this department at the highest level that we can possibly do, which is my main concern. And again, I don't want to go backwards. So that's the issue with the firing range. So, where do we go next? So provided the funding and the zoning articles pass town meeting in May, we'd be looking at an approximately 10-month period for the design phase, which again would bring that plan into fruition. From that point, it's about a 2-month period to bid out for the project manager and the construction company, and then about an 18 to 24-month period to build. And I promise I'm almost done. Police department personnel would have to move into swing space during this time. We obviously wouldn't be able to occupy the building. There are a couple of options on the table that we're looking at. One is a trailer farm, preferably to be on town-owned property so that we can minimize that cost, or a short-term commercial space lease, or any combination thereof. So that would be something that we would decide after funding, again, as all part of that overall plan. This next slide is proposed site layout. So this is what we're calling the plan. So, and I know it's hard to see on there, but basically, if you can see the red line basically down the middle that goes left to right, that's basically the property line that divides the current station at 45 Center into that open space or the sculpture park from the planned development district. The orange building that's up on the top left side, that's the proposed new building. You'll see it kind of hinges. And the red dot overlay over that is the current station. So you'll see it is a little bigger, but some of the advantages of doing this hinge site, it's going to move the building closer to Center and Sears, so it's going to get off, even further off of the abutters. It's going to allow for more of that tree canopy to remain. It's going to provide a maximum distance for the station entrance so that we're not bottlenecking Cambridge. I'm sorry, it should be Center and Bedford. So that the cruisers aren't backing up trying to get in and causing any issues in the intersection there. In that auxiliary building, which is over to the right, it looks like a small shed. That's going to give a little bit of extra visual and sound barrier to the abutters. And that building is designed there to house our command post, the motorcycle, radar trailers, mountain bikes, and some of the equipment that's in our garage right now that shouldn't be in there because it causes safety issues for the officers and detainees. By doing this hinge building, we're also going to minimize the impact to the current mature trees, as I've said, and it's going to provide that maximum separation for the cruisers as they're entering in and out of the station. So, again, Kevin could speak more to how that plan came about, but that is the plan, and from that plan, we hope to get you a final design if we move forward. So the next two are just preliminary designs. The first one was one advanced by KBA as a colonial design concept. They took a look at the Grandview Farm District and tried to make this new building look like what Grandview currently looks like, that colonial architecture. It has a 2-story glass foyer, and I will say on the hinged building, if you're looking out the front door, you would be looking across towards basically Center and Olympian right through the flagpoles at the Common, whereas if you look out our front door right now, you're looking Cambridge and Bedford. So it just reorients the building a little bit more towards this way. And then the next one, the Police Station Building Committee, some of the members had some suggestion. They thought it would look nice if the new building looks like the old. So KBA went back and came up with this design. Again, I think it looks very much like the existing station. It allows for that common feel, that familiar feel across the common. It maintains all the design efficiencies that are in the plan itself, but the outside can be further modified as we go forward if the building committee or residents come in and they say, hey, I'd really like it to look X way, and KBA can certainly do that. So again, these are just very preliminary. So based on all of that, hopefully I've answered most of your questions, but we're here to answer any more. Any point of contact, any of the 4 of us that are here right now are always willing to take any questions if you have them. And Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Chief. That was great. Discussion on this?
Did a great job, Chief. Motion to approve.
Let me throw a couple quick questions out there. Is the cost of I was unclear if the cost of the relocation is included within this budget or not.
Yeah, yes. We've included some budgetary numbers in there for the relocation for the duration of the construction.
That's that $2 million figure?
Yes.
That I saw for
Yeah.
Okay, great. And is the cost, who's at risk on this? Is the general contractor or is it the town?
I don't, what is,
In terms, I mean, that's the term that the schools are using at least, but in terms of if costs escalate and so on, is that something that the contractor is at risk or the town is for that extra cost?
the town would be. What we've tried to do in our what you were referring to, the $2 million on, is part of our opinion of probable costs. And what we do with that is it's a holistic approach to the finance for the project, not just the construction of nuts and bolts of the actual building, but everything that goes into the building as far as computers and furnishings and all that sort of, that equipment, along with all of the professional design fees, your OPM fees, legal fees. Each one of those things, we've built in a little bit of a contingency to cover any unforeseens. We also have got a construction contingency, which would be anywhere, generally in new construction, we like to carry between 5% and 7%, which is what we're carrying now, so that if something happens in the price escalation, we can kind of take care of it there. But along the way, we'll be doing, as we develop the drawings, as the chief was saying, when we start doing the final construction documents or the final design documents, we'll do cost estimates at three different milestones. What's at the phase called schematic design, which is very preliminary design with mostly narratives of systems. We'll do one at the end of design development where the plans are becoming more real. We have actual line drawings for all of your mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems and our structurals, so that the estimates get more and more refined as not assumptions. And then we'll do one probably at about 75% construction document phase, so that all along the way, we'll be able to do any course corrections if market conditions change. It was very important that we do that, especially coming through the COVID situation, where prices were really unknown, what was going to happen with supply chain. And it's something we did before that, and we've done through it, and we continue to do now. It's a way that we can ensure, to the best of our abilities, that the number that we're going to town meeting with in 2 weeks, that's the number that we're going to be living with. We don't want to go back to town meeting for anything other than for some God known reason, if there's another pandemic, something else completely unforeseen. We've tried to put provisions in our budgets so that any of those things can be absorbed without having to actually go back and look for more money.
Okay, and looking at the quote, I wasn't clear if I know it must be, but I couldn't find it. The architect fees is...
Yes. That was in the project soft costs of the OPC. It's probably the first line item under the soft costs.
It's labeled A&E.
Yeah, A&E, sorry.
I'm sorry, it's labeled what?
It's labeled A&E for architectural engineering.
Okay.
Design fees.
All right, I'll find that. I assumed it had to be in there. All right, great, thank you. Anything further on this, Mike?
What did I saw the picture that showed kind of a carve out of the sculpture park. What amount did that end up? Do you have an estimate, like how big it's going to be?
Square footage of the parking, I think that we're referring to as the parking area.
Yeah.
I don't know the square footage. It's probably about 20 or 25 parking spaces.
Okay.
We tried to do as minimal impact on that as possible. As the chief said, we are very aware that we are abutting a residential neighborhood with people's personal houses and residences, that we take that very seriously, that we want the police department to be a good neighbor to those abutters. And part of that is to have them as invisible as possible to the abutters. A couple of projects that I've worked on in the past 15 years or so, there were 2 of them in particular that really had trees and preserving of mature specimens is a primary goal. My hometown of Holliston, we have what's called a moon tree. Back in the 70s, they brought a bunch of seeds up into Space Lab and germinated them in space, and then they distributed them to a bunch of different municipalities around the country. We happen to have one. It was within 20 feet of the existing building, and it remained 20 feet within the new building. But that was a criteria that tree could not die because it could not be replaced. And to this day, it's still flourishing. Then when I did another project in Plainville, we had it was a municipal complex. We specifically designed the entrances to the complex around some mature trees, so that it didn't have that developer's look of, okay, we completely clear-cut everything, we put in these little 10 to 12-foot brand-new trees that are going to take 30 years to grow in, make it look mature and like it's been there. We want the building to look like it's been there forever. So preserving trees and natural elements is an important design feature. It's so much important that part of our office, we have as part of the Castle Booze internal team, we have a whole department of landscape architects and interior designers, because we approach the project as a holistic. It's not just the exterior, it's not just the interior, it has to work all together. So all three of the major components of the project are working in harmony, and we have all of those representatives at the table as we start to design and as we start to evolve the designs, whether it be the interiors, the exterior facade, or the site, in the development of those elements. We're doing that as a group, and we're doing it with you as a community, so that the project comes out the way you want it, not the way we would necessarily envision it, because it's not our building, it's you people's.
Mr. Chairman? I just wanted to add, I don't know if, I'm pretty sure it's in the chief's presentation, but at the planning board, we committed to returning and rezoning whatever we don't use back into the PDD upon the completion of the project, so.
Okay, that's great. Doug?
Is that all approved? I mean, are we all, the reason, I mean, has everybody been on board with all that?
I don't want to say on board. I think we got a split vote there at the planning board. I think we went the first time, we received a 5-2 vote in favor. There was a problem with the advertisement, and we went back and we ended up with a 3-3. So that was the final vote that will go to town meeting from planning board would be a 3-3. 3-3. There was one member missing. But we did make that commitment at planning board to return the unused portion of the sculpture park back into the PDD as open space.
Frank?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to just
Or
double
man
check
and
a
Mike.
couple of things on space. So what garage facilities will you have in the new building?
So the new building would have 2 sally ports. Right now, we have the one garage, we call it a sally port, would have 2. But then the new building design would also have an outbuilding, which would allow us to store the command posts, the motorcycle, the mountain bikes, et cetera.
So none of your typical cruisers are going to be garaged at all at this site? It's all in the parking lot?
Correct.
And we have, I thought at one time we had a bus, but maybe I'm crazy.
We did, it's long gone, but no, you're not crazy.
Oh, I'm crazy.
We had one.
So I guess you feel there's really no need to garage any of the vehicles, the typical cruiser vehicles?
I would love to be able to do that, Frank, but no. Those would strictly be for prisoner transport and drop-off, and also holding evidence. So a lot of times if we seize a car, we have to put them in a secure area, so it would go in there. But it would not be to garage the line cruisers or...
Yeah. I guess it wouldn't fit. I mean, I think there's some benefit to garaging vehicles, especially in the winter, but, okay, that doesn't fit. And the other question I had was, in terms of amenities inside the building, we have some space that can be used as just general meeting rooms, municipal type use or not, outside of a police function.
There is a training room that could be designed for municipal use as well, but again, the trade-off with that is the parking. I think currently there's 10 spaces for the public, which is basically an estimate on how many residents would be there at any one time.
So there's no intent to try to do that with the training room?
I mean, it would still be available for use, we just wouldn't necessarily have significant amount of parking on site to, hold a larger event there, but there will be a training room that could be used for public meetings and such.
Okay, and then the other thing I wanted to know, in terms of food services of any kind, is there a kitchen area that is available to you that's sufficient that you can actually, take care of lunch-type stuff and that sort of thing?
Not so much for actually prepping food, like as a actually prepping, but if you were to bring your lunch, there is a break room. They'll have a refrigerator, a microwave. Stoves are always a very delicate part with the building code and that.
And seating to have one.
Seating, there's probably 8 to 10 people for seating, so it would handle the administrative staff that aren't on the road and any officers that wanted to come back to the station and have their meal in the station.
So it doesn't sound, as new buildings go, this seems fairly conservative to me. It's not particularly building out a lot more space to do more things. Sounds like it just fits.
What the program, as the chief alluded to, in our analysis of the space needs and creates the department's program, we actually do a net to gross ratio, and in that, we're efficient in our layout. But as we go through the space needs programming, we're trying to anticipate where growth is going to be in certain divisions within the department. So if they need more detectives or they need more in traffic, we've anticipated that by putting enough room for an extra workstation in there. If it's something that's more anticipated in a very short term, that's all part of that as well. But we're looking for this building to last the needs of the department for the next 50 years.
Yeah, that's really the thrust of the question. If we got enough elbow room that we don't see ourselves having to compromise space in order to get the typical growth you expect over time. So you think you've got everything you need in terms of space and arrangement. Okay, and on the price tag, you go back to the question that Mr. Reiner asked. At one time, I thought we were thinking this was going to be coming in more like 40 million than where we're at now. Is there any chance that this could come in less? Do you feel like you're on the high end of this estimate?
There's always a chance. I don't mean that. Yeah. I mean, what we've done is we've worked with our cost estimators that I've been working with this firm for almost 20 years now, and we've tried to forecast what we think escalation is going to be, because we know that we're going after the money now, but we're not going to spend it. We're not going to get the price tag from the contractor until probably next year at this time, or next June. So we've anticipated, they're telling us it's almost going to be 10%. That's built into the escalation of the numbers as the OPC works through. If that isn't realized, then obviously the numbers all will start to diminish some.
And we're looking at a 25-year note? Is that what we're talking about here?
We haven't discussed the financing with our financial specialist, John, but what do we have it in the plan at?
Yeah, I think for our modeling, we used 25 and 5. But, we would ban for a couple of years, and then maybe we'd squeeze a couple
When
more.
this goes to town meeting, which is coming right up, that's clearly going to be a question, is what's the life of the bond, right?
Yep. Our model is 25 and 5.
5%. And has there been any thought, are you thinking of entertaining any discussion of buying the bond in the short term with free cash? Has that even come up?
That question's come up a couple of times, Frank, and I think we've been utilizing free cash, as you know, through the Ways and Means Committee to pay off debt before it gets on the schedule pretty aggressively. And John put together a spreadsheet for everybody because we knew this question would come up. And I think it's been, over the past 10 years, close to $30 million that we've kept off the debt schedule with free cash. So we've done that in a variety of ways. Some of it at town meeting, some of it when we go to finance the projects and there's funding available. But one of the things we considered on this was we didn't necessarily want to take a big chunk of free cash off the top, given that they're going to be looking at our bond rating. Reserves are, having strong reserves will factor into maintaining our bond rating. And we do anticipate that pending the availability of free cash, that we will be requesting to utilize free cash to pay off some of these bands as we're doing it to lower the amount that we have to borrow ultimately. But it won't be in the motion at town meeting. It would come subsequent to that in our upcoming discussions, next year and the year after, as we're talking about a smart ways to utilize free cash at that point.
Basically, it's part of the reason I ask, I sort of know the answer, but more than one person has asked me more than once, why aren't we using more of our free cash, particularly on the police station, to finance the upfront? And I think the answer is we can always do that. Let's get a year out, see where we are with when in fact we actually bond the rate, what the bands are looking like, and then we can decide on a free cash position again.
It's similar to the same process we go through every year with the free cash discussion.
It probably will come up at town meeting. I think my vote from a Ways and Means perspective would be that we should just leave the free cash alone, leave it out, put the thing out, straight up, full bond, and pass it. And then if we have the ability to do better than that, we have it. If we do something else, we're possibly eating our own seed corn for something else we don't even know about. There's no need to do that. We know we can bond it. So, okay, thank you.
I think, Frank, if I could just add one thing, is we talked about during the free cash conversation is we have the option to, we're lucky that we can wait. We don't have to decide right now to use it because we're going to have a couple more bites at the short-term borrowing and paying it off through the debt service budget. But the most important thing for the administration and for our, whatever we were calling our finance group, was to protect our bond rating when we're going to go out and borrow for some major projects.
And just to pursue that just a skosh more, Mr. Chairman, it's slightly off topic, but very recently, I believe you were reevaluated for our AAA bond rating.
Yep, we were reaffirmed at AAA.
Yeah, and was there any input on how they felt about our reserves, where they wanted to see the reserves not go below, for example?
They don't give you a threshold.
Yeah, they don't speak in absolutes, but they were generally pleased with where they were. They felt that they were within the range of AAAs, and they felt that they were very healthy. But they don't often say, don't let this drop below a particular number.
Right, but were they aware of the drawdown we were going to do from the $32 million for this town meeting down to 16 in free cash?
I think we talked about the upcoming capital projects in terms of, and that's been, somewhat similar to the past few years. And, pay-as-you-go capital using free cash and reserves for those type of things, that they look at that as a positive.
An unused balance of, we expected it to be similar or more than we did coming out of last year into this year, and that's the case. It's $2 million more, and that's if everything got approved.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Just so on the discussion on the parking, the town's got a few properties right in that area, and I'm just wondering if anybody's looked at the feasibility of kind of shared parking with any of the other town lots. And I'm not saying, an emergency call comes in and an officer's got to run down to town hall to jump in his cruiser, but is there anything that doesn't get used much or that you could store?
So, Mike, I can answer that. We have officers now who park in the library, they park behind the Sears building, and undoubtedly, a couple of times a week, I'll get a call from the library director, hey, can you get the cars out of the library? We don't have enough spots. We have one officer who's got an electric vehicle, he parks behind here, he doesn't seem to have a problem, but we've tried even to park over at Grandview, they may have something going on, so it hasn't worked to our advantage. And the other thing with officers, because the condition of the locker room is so deplorable, they don't want to leave their gear in the lockers. It grows mildew very quickly, so they keep their gear in their car. So if they come into roll call, for instance, and they're parked, two lots away, and they get that hot call, now they're screaming out of the lot to go to that and get their gear, and it just doesn't work from an efficiency standpoint. So we have tried it. It's not the best situation.
Okay.
I would just speak to your thought, Mike, is it seems to me like a little bit of feast of famine. I mean, we're never going to have enough parking for Celebrate Burlington. Most days, the parking on the entire campus is adequate, maybe not directly behind the police station, but there are days when there's something going on at the Grandview and there's something going on at the COA or the rec center when, we really do have a parking problem, but it's certainly not every day. It's a little bit sporadic, but it's definitely up and down situation where, most days we're kind of okay, but there are definitely certain days when people are scrambling to find parking along the entire campus, going from the Human Services Building, down to, the Town Hall Annex.
Okay, yep, thanks.
Motion's on the floor, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Did we get a second on that? Thank you.
Steve?
All right. With any luck, my battery will hold out here. It's getting low.
I have a job here, actually, if you want it.
No telling what will happen. All right, so this is warrant article 20, police station construction project for $46,225,000. David?
Yes.
Oops. Sonia?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Chris Delaney?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Chris Campbell?
Yes.
Cheyenne?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. That's 12-0-0.
Thank you.
All right.
Very
And
much.
we
Thank
do.
you all.
All right, we do have the public safety communications coming up next year also. Thank you for joining us on the police station there. Okay, this is warrant article 7-1. We had discussed this previously, but because we hadn't had the free cash discussion, we didn't take a vote on it. So hopefully you all wrote down what your thoughts were and how you might vote. Do you have any further updates on that, Mike?
No, just a refresher. So this is a kind of a three-part project. Part one was upgrading console systems. Part two was new antennas went in around town. And part three is a combination of radios for firefighters, police, and there's an extra radio box receiving system as well.
Great, okay, and we have Chief Connerty with us here also. Any further updates or just where we were last time?
Yeah, I have nothing to add.
Okay.
Move to approve?
Second.
All right. Just making sure I don't see any hands up. David?
Yes.
Sonia?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Chris Delaney?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Chris Campbell?
Yes.
Cheyenne?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, that's 12-0-0. I'm not sure I said the amount. That was 7-1 for $955,000. Okay, next is warrant article 7-2, which we also discussed but didn't vote on, the fire rescue ATV. Do you have additional data on that, Mike?
Fire rescue ATV, no additional updates on that.
Thank you very much, Chief Brown.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, any additional updates on that, Chief?
No, I've just been hearing a lot of different questions like, what if this and what if that? And, if you go to the res, you can't do this. If you go to the landlocked parcel, you can't do that. It's just another tool for us to get us closer to a patient or closer to a fire, or split our crews up at a fire to have an additional vehicle. I know that there were questions about carrying patients versus riding them on this. I talked to Bedford today. They love it. They have a similar model, a smaller two-seat. They said their protocol is to drive it and have people walk along with it. So it's in essence carrying someone with the vehicle as opposed to carrying them, hundreds of yards through the trails, tiring guys out. And I think that would save on injuries. And for, firefighting, it's a dual-purpose vehicle. It has a pump on it, it has a 70-gallon tank on it. It makes us more versatile in what we can do. So I know Lexington is ordering a standalone mini ambulance and a standalone fire pump. So we're doing it 2 in 1. So that's, I guess, what I have to add.
Okay. Discussion or questions on this? Comments?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
All right, I'll just throw a comment in there. My sense from last time is I'm confident we would find a way to use it if we had it. This struck me as a new capability and a little more of a want than a need kind of thing. But that was just my feeling on it. Okay, so this is for warrant article 7-2, fire rescue ATV for $65,000. David?
Yes.
Sonia?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Frank?
No.
Mike?
Yes.
Chris Delaney?
Yes.
Doug?
No.
Chris Campbell?
No.
Cheyenne?
Yes.
And chair votes no. That's 840. All right, and we're now Article 7-3, the command car. Do we have an update on that, Mike?
I believe that when we talked about this the last time, there was a comment that the quote was a bit dated. You might have pointed that out, Frank, and I think Chief Connerty got another quote, and there's an updated price to that. I don't recall if that changed prices.
I think that price was already updated last time.
Okay.
It's $78,000. Is that the right number?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
all right. That was the only bit of information that's new.
Okay. Anything additional on that?
Nope, unless people have questions.
All right. Any questions that came up since last time?
Motion to approve?
Second?
Thank you. All right. This is Article 7-3, fire command car for $78,000. David?
Yes.
Sonia?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Chris Delaney?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Chris Campbell?
Yes.
Cheyenne?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, that's 12-0-0. Next is Article 12, fire engine, which we also discussed but didn't vote on. Any updates since last time, Mike?
No updates on that one.
Okay, any updates since last time?
No updates.
All right. Questions? Frank?
Why didn't we vote on it?
This fell in the same category as all the other ones. We discussed these when we were doing the fire budget, and we didn't have the free cash plan yet, so we didn't know what our overall capital budget was going to be.
And you have for the source of funding on this?
Good question. What does it officially say in the warrant?
Free cash.
Free cash? Okay, that's what I thought. All right, thank you.
So consistent with that calculation, free cash. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Budget says.
Yeah, just to double check, I'm looking at free cash plan that you and David presented and the 1.2 million,
Yeah. It's there.
where is it? Oh, there it is. Okay, good. All right, right. There's 1.2 million, so it's what was throwing me off.
Oh.
Yeah.
Coincidentally, that's also what the PFAS replacement costs. All right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Real quick, are we allowed on the floor, when can we change the source of funding before a vote at town meeting from, say, free cash to bonding or whatever?
Well, think for most of the articles, the warrant delineates a bunch of different options. The printed warrant, and then we narrow it down with the actual motion that the chair will sign. So because we delineate those on the actual warrant, we'd have to check to see the language that was in the warrant book. But that would define, what options we have in order to fund or change the funding at town meeting.
Is it, okay. I think you've answered the question. If the warrant's written broadly enough, we could move it from one source to another.
We can pick one of the choices. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Just on our site, it's still on the
It says borrow.
chair, on the website, it says borrow, but, yeah.
Okay.
Right, but in the actual warrant, it says,
Oh, it's a separate article, okay. It's not one
it says
lumped
raise
together.
appropriate transfer
Yeah.
from borrow or otherwise.
All right, so the warrant's very flexible. All right, did we get a motion on this?
And seconded.
Okay, good. All right, this is Article 12, fire engine for $1.2 million from free cash. David?
Yes.
Sonia?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Chris Delaney?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Chris Campbell?
Yes.
Cheyenne?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, that's 12-0-0. And finally, warrant Article 18, transfer, I've abbreviated so much, I'm not sure what it means. Transfer of receipts reserved for ambulance. Do we have an update on that? Or actually, we didn't discuss this at all yet, but we did in the context of the budget. In the fire department budget, there was a $360,000 offset from receipts reserved, which was applied to the budget. Do I have that right?
Correct.
Very good. All right. Do you have anything additional you'd like to add on that?
So I don't know if Mike wants to give the subcommittee, but this is something that we started last year. We started collecting funds for ALS services when we started performing that service years ago, and we created a receipts reserve fund so that all of the collections that we make for an ALS run go into that specific fund, and then we can draw on that fund to help offset the costs, the additional costs of adding or providing that ALS service. Last year was the first year we began doing that. We funded $360,000 for that last year's budget, for this current year's budget, and the plan is for next year's budget. So as John pointed out, that the operating budget for the fire department had netted out $360,000 that would come from this article. So you can expect to see this article in the future ongoing. The number will likely go up. But the idea was, and there's a memo in your backup, the idea was to not spend all of the revenues every year to offset the operating budget and build up some to pay for ambulances when we have to buy them. Whether we'll still get 5 or 7 years out of them, who knows now that we're, doing more runs. But that's the plan. Luckily, we didn't spend any money for the first bit of time, so we've got a chunk of money in there. We expect to probably have over $1.5 million after this $360,000 transfer, but that's because we didn't spend any for the first few years. So we've got some seed money there.
Excellent. And I apologize, I didn't ask for a subcommittee report.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if we had given the report before, but it sounds like we've kind of covered it. And I think the plan was to pay for a new ambulance every 5 years.
Yeah.
5 years as part of that. And the subcommittee voted 2-0 in support.
Great. Anything additional on that, Chief?
No.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
Motion to approve?
Second.
All right, we're officially going to paper now, so the order's going to change. All right, thank you, Doug. This is warrant Article 18, transfer of receipts reserved to offset the ambulance budget within the fire department budget, worth $360,000. Frank?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Chris Delaney?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Sonia?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Chris Campbell?
Yes.
Cheyenne?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. That's 12-0-0. You probably figured out my new order. All right. Next is, that is everything. Thank you for the fire. Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Not everything for everyone. If it's okay with our administration, I'd like to take care of the large crowd here for the signage article so that you guys don't have to stay all night long.
But why? It's so fun.
It is.
Was my snoring too loud?
So come on up. This warrant article 23, consulting services for town center signage. We have Betsy Hughes with us and Sherry Ellis. And Jeff DeBona is hiding in the back.
Slides.
All right, and Sally Willard in the back. Do we have a subcommittee report on this?
We do.
Excellent.
We're anticipating them coming to make a short presentation.
Okay, do you want me to?
And would we like to jump to the presentation, or?
Yes, we can do that. I'll just say quickly, Frank and I had a discussion about the big picture sense, and that was mainly the need for it, and kind of making sure that our signed bylaws are not up in the air. It seems like there's a lot of requests for variances, and so it was a matter of trying to tighten that up. We had some discussions as far as just the amount of the requests, 40,000, and it's something that I want to ask the committee a little bit on. But we voted 2-0 to support it.
Great, thank you. And just to be clear, there's a 45K number on the Ways and Means website, which you should ignore. The actual number is 40K, which matches what's in the backup that you submitted. Shall we go to presentation?
If you'd like me to do that, do you want me to, I don't know where the slides are.
Doug's got them, so we'll put them up.
Okay,
I sent you an email.
okay, I'll give you the
It's coming up.
high sign when you go to the next slide.
You give us the change slide signal.
No pun intended, sorry.
I was wondering if somebody would understand what I was saying there.
That's the one, yep.
So much for being clever at 9, whatever it is tonight.
All right, here it comes. Using all the available technology. Take it away.
Okay, so this is a presentation. First of all, I'm Betsy Hughes. I'm a town meeting member of Precinct 7. I'm on the Zoning Bylaw Review Committee and on the Signage Subcommittee with my peers here. But this is a presentation that's been 4 years in the making. And I'm really excited to actually be here to represent the ZBRC Signage Subcommittee tonight and to present this request. But before we go into the detail, I think it makes some sense to go give you some background. As some of you know, and as it was just mentioned, signage has been a hot topic in Burlington for town for years. We've heard frustration and concern voiced by residents, business owners, the Zoning Board of Appeals, and Planning Board. It's a unanimous vote that the rules and regulations need some help. So as a result, ZBRC formed a committee to address the concerns with representations from many areas. We started the project by researching what had been done in the past. There had been committees in the past that had attempted to define signage guidelines with varying success, and we wanted to learn what went well, what worked well. We interviewed a number of people who were on the prior projects. Some of you are in the room, and we talked to you about it. And what worked, and then what didn't, and why didn't those projects actually come to completion. And by understanding that history, we developed a strategy that we felt maybe would make it more something that might actually come to fruition. So, next slide. So we determined that in order to avoid the issues of the past, we really needed to take a look at Burlington and take things in manageable chunks. Burlington is a town with multiple personalities. the character in one area is very different from character in another area. And so clearly, we're not a one-size-fit-all kind of community when it comes to signage, in many things, actually, but when it comes to signage, for sure. So the thought was that we'd create signage districts, which should not be anything terribly new, but that's where we wanted. And we wanted to make sure, like all zoning regulations, that from a business owner's perspective, they understood what the rules are. It's clear, concise, they know where to get it, and very easy to use, which will help them in trying to identify their businesses. In addition, the location and the design, the size, et cetera, is something that businesses felt very strongly about because they wanted people to be able to find them. But at the same time, we need to protect the interests of the residents and the people who live in the communities that are around those businesses as well. We have a master plan as a community, and we want to make sure that we're aligning our regulations for signage with that master plan and vision of what the town's going to be, so that if we have a plan that is going to be looking in one way, that the signage supports that. And of course, we want to leverage best practice from other towns. There are a lot of places that have done a lot of good work and thought through this. So we wanted to avoid the kind of not invented here syndrome that sometimes you can be susceptible to, and we wanted to make sure we didn't do that. So although the process was cumbersome, took a lot of time, and was time intensive, the results as we conducted the extensive research and best practices, we talked to local towns and looked at what they did. And this is just a representative sample of some of the towns we talked to. We had the International Signage Association come to our meetings and talk to us about best practice and some ideas of things that we should be considering. We talked to the building department. Actually, the building department director was on the committee, and so from the beginning, and then we had the new director, so we understood what the issues were, as well as the ZBA, understanding what the issues and what they were hearing about. The planning department was really helpful because we got the planning dictionary, so rather than trying to make up definitions for what is a marquee sign anyhow, we could take the standard industry definitions, because that's all part of the zoning bylaw as well. We also decided we were going to start with one district, and that one district was the town center overlay. Others will follow, so this is just the first one. So we're not going to talk about the other areas now or at town meeting. We're only talking about the town center overlay. So we're kind of putting together a initial phase that we're going to start. So this is like phase one, if you will, on signage in the town center. So we had the town center district zoning bylaw that we have put together, which includes the definitions, a use table, and we saw in other towns, one of the tools that they used that was very helpful to both the residents as well as the businesses, was a signage district guide book. It has everything from the flow chart of how you go about requesting a sign, who needs to approve, the URL where you go for a sign permit, and then definitions and showing examples of different kinds of signs. So the approach that we decided to take here with going for the town center overlay signage district was had the support of the ZBA, the building inspector, town council, et cetera. This work was the result of a lot of effort from a lot of people, and you can go to the next slide, but I'm not going to, there are just a lot of people on here, but I want to call out Sally Willard, who has been the...
I just want to, I can wait till the end, but...
Okay,
it's
I'm
just
almost done.
It's a quick point on the slide. You said local towns, but you have Westfield listed there? I'm curious.
That was one of the towns that we talked to. That one wasn't local, but that was...
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that wasn't
no.
a typo. Thanks.
Nope. So anyhow, Sally has been the leader, the fearless leader. She has been tenacious. She's persevered through a lot of ups and downs and calling these meetings, and has kept everything on track. We used experts outside of the committee. We also had some local business owners not only participate in different phases of the project, but at this, as it rolled out. So although there's a lot of talent in this group, and we can go to the next slide, what we realized quickly as we had these things put together and we had a product was that there's a limitation to the group that was working on that, in that we just don't have the deep industry experience that you need, or in zoning bylaw expertise to affirm the strategy and help us refine the work for the town center signage district. So we need help with somebody who really understands this business. The scope of the project, as we defined it, if we're looking for a consultant, is on the next page. And we did send it to 2 urban design organizations for quotes, just to get a sense of what it would be. We did talk to the economic director, who actually initially gave us a number based on her broad experience in other communities with these kinds of projects, a number that she thought would be appropriate. And I think she gave us a number between 30 and 50,000. So we went out and to these consulting firms, told them, gave them a copy of this. This is the scope of what we're looking for. We want you to become really familiar with the master plan and the regulations, and in the town center, the guidelines for that. And in that context, then review the work that we've done. We're not asking anybody to create it. We've already created it. We're asking them to review it with their expertise to point out, especially on the use tables where you get into dimensional things and materials and that sort of thing, where we don't know whether a 3x5 is actually going to deliver the look and feel that we're looking for the town center, but they will. We also want to make sure that we're involving businesses in this process, so we want to have at least 2 listening sessions for the town center businesses, so that we can accommodate maybe some different schedules. They will be virtual because we think that's probably going to be better for the business owners, and then a listening session for the community. One of the things, because this is a zoning bylaw, is that if it is approved, then the businesses don't have to change their signs right away. It's only if they make substantial changes in their building, it's like over 20 or 25%, then they would have to make the change. So there's nothing, it's not like a general bylaw where you have to do it. Everybody's going to be grandfathered. But there are ways, and there are communities who've put together some incentives for these businesses to comply early. So we want to get some ideas from the consultant as to what have been successful ways to incent businesses, so we can accelerate the compliance with this, so we can accelerate the look and feel of the town center that we want to create. And then obviously give us a report at the end. So the next one is the cost. So this is the basis of the cost estimate here. So when we went out to ask these 2 consulting firms, the first one came in at a price of like $39,800, which was very nice. The second one came in as an initial price of like $25,000, and then when we talked to them about the scope, they just came back actually today as I was coming into the meeting I went to before I came here, with an estimate of $52,000. So, and I have to go back to them and just push a little bit on scope. But so I think we feel very comfortable that 40 is the right number, and in terms of what we want there. So next slide, in terms of what we need from you. Yeah, obviously, you will ask questions. I've noticed you're not shy about that, so feel free. And then we would like your support for us at town meeting with this $40,000 request. And if it is approved at town meeting, the plan would be for us to get on it right away, working with a consultant, and have the proposal ready for the town center signage district for January of 2025. Now, you might think this presentation is over, but it's not, because there's one more slide. Because we have some late breaking news in that we have found that through Melissa in economic development, that this is the kind of project that it really lends itself for a grant. So we have made the first step in applying for the grant. We don't know if we're going to get it, and we don't know for how much. It may be for all of it, or it may be for part of it. Apparently, they felt pretty confident that this is the kind of project that they really like to be taking on. I also, in the interest of full disclosure, depending on what happens with the MBTA, whether we get a grant or not, probably if they vote down the MBTA, this probably wouldn't happen, but I want to just make sure I'm upfront about that. So the $40,000 is the maximum that we would want to spend on this project to finalize the first phase of having signage regulations. So that is it.
You mean the grant, oh, I'm sorry. The grant wouldn't happen.
Right, if the grant, yes, just that grant.
All right. Discussion? Steve?
I'm just curious as to why Westfield's in the list. But did it have a, did it have?
It's West Ford.
Or that's what I was asking for
Oh, okay, sorry.
clarification. It looked like it said Westfield.
It did probably say it's West Ford. F-O-R-D. It's a typo.
You're like
and
a
is
chihuahua
now
with a
fixed.
steak on it.
Well, no, because Westfield is in Western Mass, where I grew up outside of, I grew up in East Long Meadow, so that's why I was wondering what unique characteristic of the town of Westfield would contribute to our signage.
Mystery solved.
Thank you.
Roger?
A couple of questions. In terms of the estimate and the information from the potential consultants, how many about hours of work do they think that is?
I have their proposals. One of them outlined it very specifically in a matrix with this part is so many hours, this part, and each section had a number of hours associated with it.
That's fine.
But
and this is one district. How many districts did you identify in Burlington?
we have not started yet, because when we started into that is in and of itself a black hole that you go into. And so the thought is we need to be successful in one area, because if we can be successful in one area, and it can, and it could, and each area could potentially be very different. So.
Oh, right, I get that. I'm trying to figure out what the multiplier is.
Right,
to
so
40,000.
can I answer? Can I answer that one? So we've created a framework with this signage district. This was probably the most difficult one to do because Town Center has already a character and it has some guidelines already. So on one hand, it's easier because it's already kind of defined, but on the other hand, there's many different signage types in there. So we've developed the framework with all the definitions and the regulations. With this consultant, it's not a multiplier per se that I won't swear we would never be back. But with their help in this one, our committee can do most of the rest of the work. Right? We will have all the definitions of all this. We already have the written bylaw, we have the definitions, we have a guidebook. We're looking for the confirmation from them that we've done it the right way. If they have any, comments or things to do better, I wouldn't say we'd never need help again, but it's not like, we'll have 7 signage districts, we're going to need 7 of these. That's not the intent.
I asked the question the wrong way, but anyway, thank you. I think that.
Did that explain it a little bit? Our framework is.
We got the hang of it. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to add, and kudos to the committee for all the work that they've done. And I know I speak for our Economic Development Director, but this is a huge complaint from the business community to not have clear and concise sign regulations. It's a constant complaint that we hear about the cost and the complexity to get a sign here in Burlington. So I would strongly urge your support of this initiative. And again, thank you very much to the committee for all the work that they've done to date.
Yes, Sonia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm going to echo what Paul said. Thank you, ladies, because it's no small task for the committee to take something like that on. And for those of us that have been around a while on seeing sign bylaw, when it's the ideal thing you're doing, because when you say you're going to rewrite the sign bylaw in its entirety, it's impossible. And then when you try to go to town meeting, if somebody doesn't like one component of a sign bylaw but likes the other, all of a sudden the whole thing is voted down. So I think the beautiful part of this is you can address a district at a time. I know we did that with municipal signage a number of years back, where municipal signage, went in and got voted at town meeting, and I don't know how many years ago, because everything feels like yesterday, but like 12, whatever, years ago it happened. Huh? A few, right, okay. So I think this is great. I really do. And I love the last slide, because that's what I was thinking, is that I know Melissa always thinks about if there's different grants. So if there's a possibility for that, that's wonderful. But, it's no secret that I'm near and dear to the town center, so I love that you started there. But I do think that it's a very definitive area, so it's a great way to kind of start the process of seeing if we can just take the bylaw one piece at a time. So I guess my only question for you guys is, once the consultant comes on board, that's when you'll be doing a few public, you envision him doing public hearings? Because Paul's right, I think businesses would love to be able to weigh in a little bit on A-frames and all of the different things.
Yeah, the intent would be that the consultant will lead the community meetings, the business meetings. So we have to work with them in terms of how we advertise it and how we do that, again, just for the town center area, so we have a limited area, and to find the right times and that sort of thing. We'll work with them on that, but yes, that's the vision.
I think it's fantastic, and I think, I see Mr. Demoto in the back. I know that the ZBA gets a ton of requests on the signage, and I think even just to alleviate where there's just some more clarity in certain areas that town meeting approves, and then we're not bombarding with things that really should start to come by right if the community agrees on it. It's great. So thank you guys for doing that.
Yeah, past ZBA chairs have told me it's over half your business, so this will hopefully alleviate that. Mike?
So I like that you're going to provide incentives for people to change their signs. Hopefully there'll be very kind of strong incentives, because it would just be a bummer if there was a sign in the center that kind of didn't fit in, but that building didn't get changed for a long time, and it's just the eyesore sticking out. So I like that idea, and hopefully it's going to be a strong incentive.
Yeah, we're hoping that the consultant will give us some pretty meaty things to consider to get people to change.
Excellent, thank you.
Ed?
Kind of a financial question, but I do want to preface this.
Answer my question.
I'm on the ZB, obviously, except during budget season, and this has been a white whale that you guys have tackled, and I appreciate that we're getting towards some closure. So this is very necessary, but with regards to the grant, if the town meeting votes to raise and appropriate, they've got $40,000 to spend, so if you get a grant for $10,000, you got $50,000 to spend, that's how it works. So it sounds like your consultants finding use for the extra $10,000. Kind of depends
I think
on what
our intent, and I may be shooting myself in the foot by saying this, but I think our intent is it's $40,000. And if we get a grant for $10,000, it's still $40,000. We're just not going to use $10,000 of the town's money.
So, but in the meantime, you're going to go to the consultant and say, this is what we've got to work with, so it's
Yeah, and I think the consultant, at least the two I've talked to, and I understand I probably have to go talk to a couple other, and I need to talk to Paul and John about the process, because this is all new to me, and Sherry's been through it, and Sally, but is that I said, if we get a budget, whatever that number is, there will be no scope creep. I mean, it's got to be, that is the number that we're going to be managing to, but we need you to, at the end of the day, you got to give us X. So how you get from here to there, you got to do with this dollar amount, and it's not going to go over that. And that's the understanding.
That's all.
Do you have a motion to approve?
Great.
Multitasking.
Barely gonna have to bring my charger next time.
Or have shorter meetings.
Yeah, so there's that.
Yeah, that seems risky using another one.
See what happens when you rely
PC
on
on the other
computers?
side.
All right, so we are, where did this go? It's down the bottom. You go down. Oh, there we go. This warrant Article 23, consulting services for town center signage for $40,000. Frank?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Chris Delaney?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Sonia?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Chris Campbell?
Yes.
Cheyenne?
He's gone.
He's off.
Gone. Chair votes yes. That's 11-0-0.
Thank you. And
Thanks
thank you for
coming.
taking us a little early.
Oh, it was great to see you.
I'm surprised you're saying thank you for 10, but
It could have been worse. All right, so now we're back in line here. So warrant Article 2, transfer of funds, various accounts, is that still withdrawn? Yes. Okay, so we won't do that. 6, warrant Article 6, authorizing revolving accounts. And there's also on the Ways and Means site, there's a chart of special accounts that you may find useful in this discussion also. Subcommittee have a report?
We do, and so these are the limits that we can spend from, we have to approve each year's spending limits in each of these revolving accounts. The revolving account expenditure limits are the exact same as last year. There is no changes. In the backup again, you see what the accounts are and the mechanisms for what can be spent out of the account. So again, bottom line, nothing is changing from previous years. We did have some direct discussions on a number of specific ones, just for more information, specifically around like the medical school and what have you. We got into more detail with that. Frank may want to talk more about that. But we voted 2-0 in favor of supporting the limitations the same time.
Did you want to add to that, Frank?
I don't want to drag out the detail, but I have had, basically, we're pretty confident that the limits are correct. In other words, they're the appropriate limit for what the accounts have been doing in this historical data to support that. So there's no reason to change it. On Meadowbrook, one of the questions that seems to float around is the town is paying for everything for Meadowbrook. So why don't we just take the building back and, keep it for ourselves? And the reality is that the Meadowbrook is pretty self-sustaining. We have a contractual obligation to take care of the roof on that building, which will happen at some point. Other than that account does its job. And I wanted to be confident that I had that clear. I think there's been some misunderstanding around town about Meadowbrook.
Okay. Do you have anything additional on that, John or Paul? No?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay. Could you call up the Ways and Means page here? Just this special revenue. Oh. No, this is the one I want to see. I just had a few quick questions that are sort of related to this while we're talking about revolving accounts. One was the Ice Palace. I was unclear. There's zero expenditures, which suggests that their budget is coming from somewhere else, or am I missing something? How does that work?
I believe that the management company pays the town almost like a payment in lieu of taxes on an annual basis, and they use it for issues that may arise that are not the responsibility of the management company. The most recent thing I can think of is when the parking lot was done over. A big chunk of the money that was in there was utilized for that.
So the management company is taking the income and managing the expenditures, so it's happening off of our budget? Is that what's happening there?
Yes, it's a little bit more complicated than that. When this went to town meeting years ago at a time when the town needed to redo the refrigeration equipment and the Zamboni. So I believe that the bid and the contract was based upon with those items factored in. The company came in and paid for those items up front and sort of amortized it over the course of life of the deal. So they take in all the revenues, they pay out all the expenses. We have no employees over there. I think where the town gets involved in is on the ice time and, reserving preferential ice time for the programs here in town, whether it be the schools or the youth hockey, youth figure skating, and things of that nature.
Okay, great, that makes sense then. And there's just one other one I had a quick question on. On the plan imaging and property file documents, my impression, it said in the other document that 2% of the building permits go into that.
Not to exceed a certain amount.
But there's no revenues going in there, so I'm wondering what's going on there. Did I read that wrong?
Sorry, I don't have the report with me, but.
If we go back to this document, scroll down, here. This is my last question on this. Here we go. On the document there, it says 2% of building department fees not to exceed $20,000 annually are the revenues.
It's an manual journal entry, so.
Oh, so that gets thrown in at the end of the year is why it's zero right now. Great, got it, okay. Any further discussion? All right. Saying a word, sign.
Oh, we did. We
Oh,
moved
we
to
already
the
did.
second.
All right,
Yeah,
you're
it's
right. Oh, I was screwing things up by not going with the flow, sorry. All right, this is warrant Article 6, authorizing a revolving account limits as stated in the document that's in the backup. Frank?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Sonia?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Chris Campbell?
Yes.
Cheyenne's still gone, right?
Yep.
Okay. Chair votes yes, that's 11-0-0. All right, next is warrant Article 17, Cable Access Enterprise Fund. Do we have a report on that, David?
We do. And this is, again, just has to be voted on. It's, again, the cable company is operating in the town, as we have many board members here. BCAT, but cable companies put a certain amount of money into an account based upon usage and all that. And this is just the mechanism for transferring the money that's put into the account by the cable companies to pay for our local cable channel. So transfers from 575 subsequently go to 205.
Anything additional from administration?
I just have one thing to add, is that the amount is 575, that's a not to exceed number. It's likely will be less than that we'll collect from the cable company and pass on to BCAT, but we wanted to make sure, just in case there was some sort of,
Miracle.
people went back to cable, that we.
So that's a do not exceed number, essentially? Okay.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Any discussion? Good. All right, Frank, I'm sorry. This is warrant Article 17, Cable Access Enterprise Fund for $575,000. Frank?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Chris Delaney?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Sonia?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Chris Campbell?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, that's 11-0-0. All right, next is warrant Article 19, Fund A&P Compensation Plan. That was withdrawn. Is that still the case? All right, so not voting on that right away. Next is, which Nick has been waiting for all night long. Thank you, Nick. Warrant Article 22, July 4th Parade. Do we have a report on that, David?
We do. Thanks, Nick, for coming. But we had a general discussion with the administration on the article. This is one that we've seen before. The number is the same number that we've seen before. It's a widely popular event. It's attended by a lot of people. We had a few questions, and we asked Nick to come here tonight, just kind of specific, more dollar questions, donations and costs and what have you. But seeing that this is something that we have looked at in previous years, it is the same amount that we voted in previous years. Subcommittee voted 2-0 in favor, knowing that Nick would be able to answer other questions that we have.
Thank you. And we have Select Board Member Nick Priest with us, and also Jeff DeBona. Are you on, what's your capacity, Jeff, on this?
On the 4th of July committee, too.
Excellent. Okay. Would you like to add to that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thanks to Frank and David for voting in favor, despite me not being able to meet with them in advance. It's been a pretty wild couple weeks. My brother just got married on Sunday. It was a wonderful ceremony and event. So just sharing that with everybody because I was super excited.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Excellent. Maybe he'd like to come to parade.
He does, and he lives in Salem, New Hampshire. So him and his now wife drive down every year to celebrate with us. So the 4th of July Parade, as a reminder, is a resident-run event. It just so happens to have had a select board member on it for a number of years now. Through sheer happenstance, really. It is now a 503c nonprofit working extremely hard with the extreme singular focused mission of bringing and growing the parade here in Burlington for the 4th of July. What we have been trying to do now that we're established and we have a treasurer and we have an actual executive board is to work really hard to establish, the budget, the metrics around what we're spending, how we're spending it, where it's going. And so, what we were able to provide this year was an income statement as well as just an overall budget for kind of how the last couple of years have gone and where the money is now. It also shows where our expenses go. So if you look at, the overall budget heading over the last couple of years, actual and this year, you'll see that all of our expenses go toward either having participants perform in the parade or having services around the parade, whether that be police detail or having custodial fees for keeping buildings open, things of that nature. And then, specifically you can see how our sponsorship and fundraising has been going thus far on our income balance. Despite, I think what we've been hearing from a lot of small and medium-sized businesses around their inability to give, they are starting to give again, just in smaller amounts. So we're really doubling down on effort. In fact, we've kind of created a whole separate fundraising crew led by Nicole Dupuy, who really goes out there and does a lot of fundraising for us. Is constantly knocking on doors, reaching out to sponsors. We were at the election. Amy was kind enough to allow us to kind of like tuck ourselves in the lobby and let folks know what was going on. Again, because a lot of residents don't know that we're resident run and that they can be involved, right? As well as where the dollars come from, which is really important when folks consider for donations. So we kind of wanted to get the numbers out there, show you where everything's going, and be available to answer any questions you have.
Just a quick one. Are these numbers you have here, are these calendar or fiscal years?
This runs, great question.
I'm guessing calendar.
I think it's calendar year. Yeah.
Okay, because otherwise, that's why you have nothing from town meeting for 2024 yet.
Correct, yes.
Got it, okay. Questions or discussion on this?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Okay, David?
So you don't have anything for this year's approval, but now looking at the income statement, it's saying again, right, we don't have the full expenses for this year.
Right, so that's the real rub, right? Yeah, absolutely. So right now, our expense line only really shows the money that we're putting out for our big fundraiser in June, our cornhole tournament, and then the Boston Fireman's Band, which is the first official signed contract. We are working to lock down everything else over the next few weeks. So this is really the big critical time where a lot of our expenses, come through.
So when you're looking through it, and this is what I was trying to catch before I went to stuff, was historically, you're spending about 30,000.
Correct.
Right? So that's kind of the number. So in looking at what they have got right now, they've got 11,000 carryover. They've fundraised already, which gives them a bank balance right now of about 20. That's why they're looking for us with the 20, which brings it up, and then they're going to be spending 30, 35 of that. So
They carry a little bit over
they
into the
still
fall.
have to carry some over. So it's really, again, it's still a thin margin.
Yeah, it's a very shoestring budget. Everything that we bring in, town meeting or otherwise, winds up getting spent, or that small 1% gets carried over to be used for deposits for the following year.
So just to be clear, if you get to 20,000, that would basically allow a carryover of about 8,000 in next year, it looks like.
Correct.
Got it.
With the same expenses last year, yeah.
Well, based on the expenses budgeted.
Yes, based on the expenses budgeted, yeah.
Yes.
Right.
I found the balance sheet. We need to have this detail. Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yep. Go ahead. Yep.
We need to have this balance accounting. And I'm having a little trouble reading it, but now I think I understand. So what we really wanted to make sure is the amount you were asking us for was enough to match up the historical rate. And it sounds like what we're anticipating is this might give a carryover of about $5,000. We don't really know.
About 8,000.
Well, it's hard to say. You don't know the expenses yet.
Well, based on the budget.
Oh, it went from 38, right, 32, right. Okay. So we already voted on it, and we did it just based on what we thought was the case. This looks to me to be reasonable. I can't see trying to reduce it by $5,000 or something. It's still an unknown, so.
And it is, I mean, as I said last year, it is our goal to work toward reducing what we're asking of town meeting. It is our goal to build ourselves to a position where we are capable of bringing in at least that 40,000 over the course of a year, and then we can start to really grow the parade over time. So, we're really taking the time to, restructure ourselves and build back so that we have the opportunity to bring a bigger, stronger, and more fun event to the community.
Do we have additional discussion? Doug?
I would just say, I was happy to see the cornhole fundraiser. The only negative comment, and I think it was just more anger after the Herb Chambers vote at the last town meeting, but it was like, yeah, they don't support a local business, and then they come knocking on the door asking for money for 4th of July. And somebody said, why don't they hold a car wash, or why don't they? And then not long after that, the cornhole thing popped up, and it's like, well, they are. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's, Herb Chambers has nothing to do with you guys, but then you're facing that as you go out to try to raise money. There's certainly not everyone in the business side of things is happy right now, and so I'm glad to see you doing that, because that goes a long way to say, hey, we're doing this also. I think it's important. I think the 20,000 is money well spent. It's a big town event. I've never been to it because we're never here, but it sounds great.
I've been to it, it's fun.
Awesome. Well, then I'll vote for you.
Thank you.
Can we do it on a different day?
Yeah, maybe would you do it a different day? I'm busy on the 4th.
The last couple of years, we've entertained shifting it.
Why does it always have to be on the 4th?
Pictures are always great.
So many towns are doing so much in the area. I mean, Wilmington does their weekend carnival. Wakefield does their big day. Even some of the participants that we have on lock for a yearly kind of repeat know that we're in the morning and that there are parades in the afternoon that they go to, right? So like and that's why the route is even positioned the way it is, so that they can just hit Memorial, hit 95, and then get to where they're going for the next parade. So it's I mean, like, it's a big coordination amongst all the folks who kind of, circulate through different parades in the area.
Bands would be cheaper on the 14th.
I bet you could do it for 3,000.
Works in France.
Try getting a traffic permit to stop traffic
All
for
right, any additional discussion of relevance? All right, we have a motion on the floor already. This is Article 22, July 4th Parade for $20,000. Frank?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Chris?
Yep.
Steve?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Sonia?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Chris Campbell? Chair votes yes, that's 11-0-0. I can't believe my pen's starting to run out. All right.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you for coming, I appreciate it. That may be our last vote.
Oh, all right.
Well, we have one more. Okay, these will hopefully be quick ones. We had warrant Article 4, which is transfer cash to stabilization fund. That was discussed in the context of the free cash and other discussion day, and the recommendation at the time was to not do that, right?
Not support the putting any additional money in.
Right. So I guess, while we don't normally vote on $0 things,
You can't withdraw it?
well, it is withdrawn. So
We don't need to talk about
it would strictly be if there's any debate about whether it should not be withdrawn.
Not
Excellent.
at 10:30.
All right, I didn't
Has
think
that
so.
ever happened on town meeting floor?
In a similar vein, warrant Article 5, transferring free cash to OPEB trust fund. Again, it has been withdrawn, the recommendation, because the recommendation was not to do it this year. Does anyone feel a compelling need to do that transfer that they'd like to argue? All right, very good.
Minutes?
Debt project update. I'm assuming no one wants to do that right now. Good.
The July meeting sounds like a great time to do that.
And
Wrap it up.
approving the April 24th minutes. Hopefully there's no edits. Discussion. Very good. All right, hold on. I need a new
Frank
column.
wants to say something.
Oh, did you really need to say something?
I just want you to know that there's like a prepositional error. It's accurate.
Thank you for highlighting that. Moving on. All right, Frank?
Yes.
David?
Abstain.
Chris Delaney?
Abstain.
Oh, wait, you were abstained, so I'm sorry. I got carried away. Steve?
Approve.
Yes? All right, Roger?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Sonia?
Yes.
Mike?
I got to think about this one.
Yes.
Preposition was advantageous.
Ed? Yes.
I had to end it.
Chris Campbell?
Disgusted, really?
Chair votes yes. Hold on, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Move to
7,
adjourn?
8, 9, 902. Anything else? Good?
Yeah, I have some new business.
All right, so, unless some other emergency comes up before town meeting, this is our final meeting for the budget season. Well done. Our next meeting is likely to be in July, where we'll have our reorganization and any end-of-year transfers that need to be done. So enjoy your time off until town meeting. All right, we're adjourned.